Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Paranormal M channel. How was your day? I'm always happy to be here sharing paranormal experiences from all around the world, hopefully helping you unwind and sleep a little better. Thank you so much for sending in your stories. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll be the first to catch the newest videos. Now, let's get into today's paranormal experience. Good night. So, I was on YouTube a few nights ago, half paying attention to one of those late-night rabbit holes. Cursed paintings, haunted portraits, all that. People telling stories about artwork that holds something. At first it was just spooky background noise while I scrolled, and then something in me shifted. It's hard to explain, but it felt like a door in my head cracked open. A memory I haven't touched in years, one I thought I'd buried for good, came crawling back like it had been waiting for the right moment. And now, I've been dreaming about her again. I was around 10, maybe 11, the first time I saw her. It was a hot summer in the early 90s. We lived in this little house in the city, but our backyard ran right up against this stretch of woods that felt wrong. Not, oh, it's just dark in there wrong. More like the kind of quiet that makes your skin itch. The kind of quiet where you feel watched even with the sun out. I remember I was outside by myself, sitting on a big old stump, having this ridiculous little tea party with stuffed animals and a plastic cup set. The air was thick, not even a breeze moving the leaves. And then she was just there. A little black girl, about my age, white dress, bare feet, hair in 3 neat plaits that hung down like ropes. And I didn't hear her approach, didn't see her come through the yard. One second I was alone, and the next second she was standing in front of me like she'd always been part of the scene. She smiled at me, like she knew me already, and asked, real politely, if she could play. And here's what still bothers me. I should have been scared, but I wasn't. I was just thrilled. Like finally, someone real, someone my age. She told me her name was Gladdy. Yeah, Gladdy, not Gladys. I remember because I asked if it was short for something, and she just laughed like it was a silly question. We played. We poured pretend tea. We giggled over nothing. The sun started sinking, and I heard my mom calling from the back door, telling me to come inside. I stood up, and that's when Gladdy grabbed my wrist. Her hand was freezing, like she'd been holding ice. She leaned in and whispered that she didn't want me to go, told me she was always alone, said she didn't have anybody else. So I promised, like a kid does. I promised I'd come back out the next day. And I even told her, if you see any grown-ups, you should hide, okay? Like it was totally normal. She nodded, hugged me tight, too tight, and then she turned and walked into the woods. That night, I woke up thirsty. I padded to the kitchen in the dark, opened the fridge, poured myself a glass of milk, real quiet, trying not to wake anyone. And before I even made it back down the hallway, I felt it. That pull, like something invisible had a finger hooked under my chin, gently forcing my face toward the back door. I walked over and looked outside. The porch light lit up a patch of grass, and then beyond that, it was just a wall of black trees. I almost turned away. And then I saw her. Gladdy stood right at the tree line, perfectly still, staring at the house. Her white dress caught the porch light like a flag in the dark. She didn't wave, didn't move, just watched. I jerked away from the door and hurried back to bed like if I moved fast enough, none of it would follow me. But that was the night things started. At first it was the little stuff you could almost explain away. My toys not where I left them. The bathroom light flickering even after Dad said the wiring was fine. The sound of footsteps down the hall when everybody was asleep. Then it got worse. And then came the shadows. Not like, oh, it's just the car headlights shadows. I mean shapes moving where they shouldn't. A figure in the hallway when I blinked awake. Something crouched up near the corner of my ceiling one night, like a spider made of darkness. And when I squeezed my eyes shut and opened them again, it was gone. And the laughter. God, the laughter. a low, scratchy cackle that seemed to drift in from everywhere, like it started in the woods, then ended up on the roof, then somehow whispered through the walls. Gladys came back the next day, and the next. Always the same white dress, always barefoot, always those 3 plaits. I asked her once if she had parents. She stared at me so long I felt my throat tighten, and then she said, real calm, "My people are everywhere. They don't sleep. They watch." I remember this wave of nausea hitting me, like my body knew before my brain did. After that, I started noticing things I hadn't wanted to notice. Marks on her arms, bruises on her shins, a dark ring around her neck like someone had pressed dirty fingers there. Her dress wasn't clean anymore. It got stained, then frayed, then torn at the hem like she'd been dragging it through mud and thorns. And then one day she showed up different. One of her eyes was missing. Not swollen shut, not bandaged, just gone. A smooth, dark hollow, like somebody had scooped it out and left nothing behind. And she still smiled, still wanted to play. And I tried so hard to act normal, because what else does a kid do when the impossible is sitting next to them, asking to pour pretend tea? But then my mom stepped out onto the porch. She watched me for a second, frowning, and she called, "Who are you talking to out there?" I told her, "My friend Gladys." My mom's expression changed, like she got uncomfortable, and she said, "You're out there talking to yourself again? Come inside, that's creepy." Gladys was standing right beside me. My mother didn't look at her once, not even a flicker, not even a pause. When my mom went back inside, I whispered, "Why can't she see you?" Gladys smiled like she'd been waiting for me to ask, and she said, "Only the ones I pick get to." And then she opened her mouth. Not like normal talking. I mean, she opened it too wide, wider than a child's jaw should ever go. Like it didn't have joints, like it was a doll being pulled apart. And her teeth weren't teeth. They were small and pale and smooth, like little bits of bone. That's when I stopped going outside. I stayed inside no matter how sunny it was, no matter how bored I got. I'd sit by the window and just stare at the woods, trying not to blink. But she still came. I'd feel her, hear that soft scrape outside, like bare feet on dry ground. Sometimes I'd see her at the edge of the yard, just standing there, waiting. The last time I saw her, it was later in the afternoon, and the woods looked darker than they should have. She leaned in close and whispered, "I'm going home now. Everybody's gonna know I went home." Then she turned and walked into the trees, and that's when I saw it. A huge black dog was waiting for her in the shadows, bigger than any dog I'd ever seen, shoulders high like a small horse. It didn't pant, didn't wag, just stared with this heavy, patient stillness. As soon as Gladys stepped into the woods, the dog followed. That night I dreamed of her. I was standing in this pitch-black room, and the only light came from a tall window. White curtains snapping and thrashing like something was trying to claw its way in. Rain hammered the glass so hard it looked like it was bending. Gladys stood there in front of the window, the black dog beside her. Neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. They just stared at me like they were waiting for me to do something. I woke up choking, like I hadn't been breathing, and honestly, I almost believed that. Until the day my dad took me to visit his friend, an older woman named Miss Maddie Ray. Her house was full of odd little antiques and dusty knickknacks that made everything feel older than it should have been. While the adults talked, I wandered the living room, and then I saw it. A painting on the wall. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like the room tilted. It was her. Gladys. Same white dress, bare feet, 3 plaits. And right next to her was that massive black dog. Behind them, the tall window with the white curtains whipping in the wind, and rain streaking across the glass. It wasn't similar. It was exact. I couldn't breathe. I just stood there staring like my body forgot how to work. I asked Miss Maddie Ray who the girl was, and she said she'd bought it at a flea market from a coastal woman. Said the seller told her it was painted way back, early 1900s or so. Miss Maddie Ray said the story was that the girl was the child of a root worker, a healer, a conjure woman, something like that. And the girl went missing. Nobody ever found her. The painting was made so people wouldn't forget her face, like keeping her seen would keep her close. I remember thinking, even as a kid, why would you want that in your house? Years went by. Then Miss Maddie Ray died. My dad took me with him when we went to pay respects and help sort through a few things. And the painting was still there, hanging in the same spot. But this time, the girl was gone. Just gone. The window was still there, the curtains, the rain, and the black dog. Only the dog remained, staring out from the canvas like it had been waiting for me to notice. So yeah, that's why those YouTube videos got under my skin. Because now I'm dreaming about her again, and I can't stop thinking about that painting. About what it means that she disappeared from it, but the dog didn't. And I don't know what's worse. The idea that I imagined everything, or the idea that I didn't. So, let me take you back a few years. In 2018, I was living with my mom again. I'd been there a couple years after getting out of a marriage that really broke me down. Being with her felt like breathing again. Safe, familiar, steady. But eventually, you know how it is, I started craving my own space. Somewhere I could rebuild and hear my own thoughts. I applied for a few apartments, not expecting much, and then one afternoon I got a call. A small one-bedroom had opened up. I said yes almost immediately, like my mouth answered before my fear could catch up. And I was scared. I hadn't lived alone in a long time. Plus, I've always had this weird fear of the dark. Not just the lights-off kind, more like the feeling that darkness can hide things. Still, I moved in, and I was genuinely excited. That first night I stayed busy on purpose. Hung curtains, shifted furniture around 100 times, unpacked boxes until my arms felt like jelly. By around 11:30, I was exhausted. I showered, got into bed, and turned the TV on because I can't sleep in total silence. My internet wasn't set up yet, so it was just the glow of the screen and whatever random channel came through. And I drifted off. But sometime in the night, I heard something in my closet. It sounded like something sliding. Then a soft thump, like it fell. Even half asleep, it scared me so badly my whole body locked up. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe right. I just laid there, whispering prayers in my head like, "Please, God, don't let me see anything I'm not supposed to see. Please protect me." I stayed frozen until morning. When I finally got up for work, I forced myself to open the closet, bracing for, I don't even know what. It was just a curtain rod that had slid and dropped. And I laughed, like one of those shaky, relieved laughs where you're almost mad at yourself for panicking. But then the thought hit me. How did it move from one side of the closet to the other like that? Curtains don't do that on their own. I tried to brush it off. I really did. A few months later, I met this sweet, handsome guy, my now husband. Back then, he was just this charming man who kept showing up every weekend like he was slowly turning my apartment into our place. And honestly, I loved it. I was getting used to being alone, but having him there made everything feel lighter. One day, I went to work and left him there by himself. When I got home, he goes, "So, there was the biggest spider I've ever seen in your living room. I killed it, but I swear it came out of nowhere." And I just stared at him. Because my apartment was always clean. No bugs, no roaches, nothing. The complex even sprayed regularly. Plus, I barely had any furniture then. There was nowhere for something huge to hide. But again, I told myself, okay, weird, whatever. Then one night I was on the phone with him, making weekend plans, laughing, relaxed, and suddenly I heard water start running in my bathroom. The bathroom was across the hall from my bedroom, so it wasn't like I was hearing things up close. It was clear as day. I went quiet on the phone, and he was like, "You all right?" And I said, "Yeah, but my shower just turned on by itself." He laughed. "Stop playing." "I'm not playing." I walked into the bathroom, and sure enough, the shower was on, full on running. He tried to explain it away. Water pressure, old pipes, something like that. And I wanted to accept that. I really did. But by then, it started to feel like my apartment had moods, like it was watching to see what I'd ignore. Now this is the part where people either lean in closer or they back away. So about 6 or 7 months after I moved in, my boyfriend, Malik, officially moved in with me. That first week, one night, we went to bed like normal, and I remember opening my eyes and seeing a little girl standing in the doorway. A little black girl, maybe 8 or 9. Her hair was in neat braids, and she was wearing this pale yellow dress that looked like it belonged in an old photograph, like something from the 1950s or 60s. She wasn't moving. She wasn't smiling, just standing there. I blinked hard, and she was gone. I didn't tell Malik right away. I didn't want to scare him. I didn't want to make it real. But things kept happening. At night, in the bathroom, I'd hear a woman humming, soft and steady, like she was doing it absent-mindedly. The sound seemed to come through the vents, like the walls themselves were carrying it. I'd ask Malik if he heard it, and he'd just look at me like, "Babe, I don't hear anything." Sometimes I'd be watching TV in the living room and catch, out of the corner of my eye, this tall shadow standing in the kitchen doorway. It would feel like it was facing me, like it knew I noticed it. And I'll be honest, after a while, I got used to it. That's what scares me the most when I think back, how quickly your mind can adjust to things it shouldn't have to. Then a year passed, and the activity got louder. Knocking, missing items, things showing up in places we knew we didn't put them. I was also pregnant with my first baby, and Malik kept saying I was just anxious, just hormonal, just extra sensitive. Until one night, we were both wide awake in bed and we heard knocking, clear, rhythmic knocking on the bedroom wall. He sat straight up. I remember his face in the TV glow. That look that said, "Oh, okay, so it's not just you." After that, he started changing little things, like sleeping with the ceiling light on. At first I thought it was funny. Mr. Tough Guy needs a nightlight? But then he admitted, real quiet, that he'd been seeing something. He called it an imp. He said he saw it standing at the foot of the bed, that sometimes he'd feel it brush against him, like something rubbing past his body when nothing was there. And then there was the mirror. My mom had gifted me this rotating hallway mirror when I first moved in, one of those swivel ones. Malik hated it. He said walking past it made his stomach turn. Eventually, he started covering it at night like it was a doorway. By the time I had my first son and got pregnant with my second, it felt like the apartment was fully awake. Malik started working a shift where he had to leave around 3 a.m., and every time he left, my heart would drop like I was being abandoned in a house that didn't want me there. So I'd gather everything I needed, diapers, wipes, bottles, my phone, and bring it all into the bedroom. I'd lock the door and wait until sunrise, like I was surviving something instead of living. And then one night, something happened that I still don't like to say out loud. I was in the bedroom, half asleep, and it felt like I slipped into this dream, but not a dream state, like a vision. In it, I saw feet moving under the bedroom door. Slow steps, like someone was walking in my hallway. Then the door didn't open, but something came in anyway. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. It was like I was being held down by invisible weight. And in that vision, it moved toward my son's bed. My baby started screaming, this terrified, panicked scream that snapped something inside me. I jolted out of it, grabbed him, and held him so tight he was shaking. I felt my whole body go cold. I called Malik, crying so hard I could barely speak, and I told him, I can't do this anymore. That morning, I packed what I could and went to my mom's. I stayed there off and on for months, and during that time, it was like we couldn't catch a break. Every time we tried to move, something would fall apart. Applications stalled. Money disappeared into emergencies. Plans collapsed at the last minute. And Malik? He changed. He was still living in that place, still dealing with whatever was in there, and it was like it wore him down. His mood, his behavior. It wasn't him anymore. It was like the house was draining him. We had this neighbor, a young woman, friendly, always sitting with us sometimes when things felt heavy. She had a little boy, too. The last time I saw her was right before Christmas. We talked like normal, like everything was fine. A week later, she was gone. She was murdered. And her mother was killed, too. Her mom died outside near our place. After that, something in me just shut down. Like my spirit said, enough. Not long after, we finally moved. And I'm telling you, even now, years later, if I drive past that building, I can feel it. That heaviness, that watching feeling. Like whatever lived there didn't leave. It just waited. And I always pray for whoever lives there now, because I wouldn't wish what we went through on anyone. So, growing up, I always felt a little out of place in my own family. Not in the usual, I'm quirky way either. I mean, I'd notice things I shouldn't be able to notice. I could look at someone and know pieces of their story, like grief they never spoke out loud, or something they'd survived that didn't show on their face. And sometimes, this is the part I almost never said out loud. I'd hear people, or catch a glimpse of someone, when nobody was physically there. Whenever I tried to tell my parents, they brushed it off. You've been watching scary movies, or your imagination is getting away from you. And I'm telling you, nobody took me seriously. Not one person. But one night, when I was a teenager, sophomore year, I got my first real, unmistakable encounter. This was mid-2000s. I want to say 2006, maybe early 2007. It was around 3 in the morning, and I'd fallen asleep on the living room couch with the TV low. Then, boom! A loud crash that sounded like it came from right up the street. I shot up, heart pounding, and peeked through the blinds. And sure enough, there was a car smashed into this heavy metal gate across the way, like it had hit it full speed. I could see movement, lights, the kind of chaos where your body wakes up before your brain catches up. It looked like a police chase had just ended right there. I saw a figure jump out of the driver's side and take off running, gone in seconds. And the whole thing happened right in front of my aunt's place. So I grabbed the phone and called her immediately. Like, I didn't even think, I just dialed. She answered groggy, and I'm like, Auntie Felicia, are you okay? Something just crashed out there. She's trying to wake up while I'm talking fast, and then, while I'm still on the phone with her, I hear a knock at the front door. Not a little tap, a real knock. I remember pulling the phone away from my ear and saying, Auntie, hold on, somebody's knocking. And she goes, At this time of night? I said, "Yeah, I hear it." So I get up, still half asleep, and I go to the door. I didn't open it. I asked first. I said, "Who is it?" And in this very low, soft voice, like a little girl trying not to wake the house, the person says, "Caroline." Just like that. Simple. Calm. I froze for a second and said, "Caroline who?" No answer. Nothing. And I'm standing there staring at the door like, maybe it's someone messing with me. Maybe I misheard. Maybe... So I snatched the door open, and there was nobody there. Nobody. And I don't mean maybe they ran off. I mean, there was no way anyone could have left that porch that fast without me hearing the steps. The porch boards creaked when you breathed on them, okay? You could hear someone coming up before they even reached the top. I just stood there with the door open, staring into the night, feeling my skin tighten like something had walked through me. So I shut the door and went back to the phone, and I told my aunt what happened. I said, "Auntie, somebody just knocked and said, 'Caroline.'" And I tried to laugh it off because that's what people do when they're scared. I told her, "The only Caroline I know is the one my cousin Jay used to date. And this is going to sound crazy, but it sounded like her voice." There was silence on the line. Long silence. I kept saying, "Hello? Auntie? You there?" And when she finally answered, her voice was different. Like she didn't want to say what she was about to say. She goes, "Baby, I'm here." And I said, "Why you so quiet?" And she said, slow, heavy, "I swear to you, I didn't even respond. I just hung up. Not because I was being disrespectful. I hung up because my brain couldn't hold it. Like my body panicked before my manners could kick in. I sat there staring at the wall, feeling sick. I didn't even know she had passed. I didn't know anything, so why would she knock on my door? Why would she say her name? Why me? And that's when things started getting worse. A couple weeks went by, and I tried to pretend it didn't happen. I tried to be normal, but the air around my house started feeling heavy, like something was always right on the edge of being seen. Across the street from where we lived, there was this fenced-off lot with thick bushes, one of those places where, if somebody wanted to hide, you'd never know. One evening, around 8-ish, not even late, I was on the porch waiting to see if my boyfriend at the time would walk past. Just sitting there, bored, watching the street. And all of a sudden, I heard wind. But not like normal wind. It was like the air was moving in one single spot, one patch, like somebody was standing there, breathing hard, stirring the air around them. Then I heard footsteps, fast footsteps, running up the porch steps toward me. And I didn't see a person, nothing visible, but I heard it so clear that my body reacted like it was real. I screamed and bolted inside, slammed the door, locked it so hard my hands hurt. I ran past my mom without explaining, straight to my room, and shut the door behind me. I was shaking, sweating, crying, all at once. I stayed in there for a while, maybe half an hour, trying to calm down, but that uneasy feeling never left. It felt like something had followed me, like the air itself was pressing against my skin. And I don't know why I did this. I still don't know why, but something in me said, "Turn the lights off." So I turned off every light until my room was pitch black. Then I went to the window and pulled the curtain back just enough to look outside. And I almost fell, because across the street, right by those bushes, I saw her, Caroline, or something that looked like her. She was standing there, half in the shadows, staring straight at my house like she knew exactly where I was. And the thing that scared me wasn't just that I saw her. It was how wrong she looked. Her hair looked wild, like it was floating even though there was no wind. Her eyes had this reddish shine, like an animal caught in headlights. Her face looked stretched in a way that made my stomach drop. It didn't feel like a sad spirit. It felt angry. It felt mean. I remember whispering, "What is happening?" to nobody. And when I blinked, just a normal blink, she was gone. I backed away from the window, so slow, like any sudden move would bring her back. I thought, okay, it's over. Just go to sleep. Just breathe. You're safe. I got into bed, still trembling, and I was trying to settle my heart down when tap, tap, tap. A knock at my window. My whole body went cold, and even though every part of me was screaming not to move, I got up and went to look. At first, nothing. Just darkness outside. I started to close the curtain, hands shaking, and right as the fabric slid across, I saw her face. Right there at the window. So close it didn't make sense. And she smiled, this awful, wrong kind of smile, and said, real low, "Hey." But it wasn't friendly. It sounded like a voice trying to pretend. And that's all I remember, because my knees buckled and everything went out. I don't remember hitting the floor. I don't remember anything after that. I just know I never, ever want to see her face again. Hey, okay. I'm just going to tell you this the way I'd tell a friend late at night, because I don't know how else to hold it. My name is Mara, and as long as I can remember, I've been sensitive. Like, too sensitive. I notice things other people don't. I'll catch movement where there shouldn't be any. Hear a whisper that doesn't belong to anyone in the room. Feel a shift in the air like someone just walked through me. I've had experiences that weren't just spooky. They were hostile. I've been shoved awake, cornered by shadows, left shaking in a way I can't explain away. So I've learned to do the usual things. Protect myself. Keep my boundaries. Don't invite anything in. Don't talk to it. Don't react. And it still finds me anyway. This started maybe 10 days ago, give or take. My life is actually pretty good. My marriage is steady, safe, loving, the kind of comfortable that feels like home. We've also been trying to bring a little spark back into things, you know? Not because anything is wrong, just because life gets busy and you want to stay connected. We've talked about it more openly lately. Little conversations in passing, teasing, laughing, that kind of thing. And I hate even saying this out loud because it makes my skin crawl now, but it's like something heard us, like something was listening. The first moment happened in the kitchen. My husband was upstairs with our kid, building some ridiculous block tower and making the kind of chaos that somehow sounds adorable when it's not happening right next to your head. I was cooking, stirring something on the stove, wiping counters, that whole multitasking dance. And I felt it. That sensation like someone steps behind you and you don't need to look to know you're not alone. I heard this whispering, soft, close, like it was right at my ear, but I couldn't make out a single word. I turned, expecting to see my husband coming down to check on dinner. No one was there. But the feeling didn't leave. It lingered like a bruise you haven't touched yet. After that, the days were tense. I'm home most of the time with my kid, so I'd stay busy, keep the lights on, keep music playing, keep my mind moving. But at night, especially on the evenings my husband worked late, the air in our bedroom felt wrong. Not loud, not dramatic, just heavy, like the darkness had weight. I'd see quick movement in the corner of my eye. I'd feel the mattress shift when no one sat down. And I kept doing what I always do. Pretend it's nothing. Ignore it. Don't feed it. Then this weekend happened, and I don't even know how to say it without feeling sick. I was in the shower. Normal routine. Shampoo, rinse, trying to enjoy 5 minutes of peace like it's a luxury vacation. And suddenly I felt a touch. Not a bump, not a cold draft, not that usual presence sensation. This was deliberate, intimate, like a hand right against me, as if someone was right there with me. I froze so hard I couldn't even breathe for a second. Because listen, out of everything I've ever experienced, I've never been touched like that. Not like that. It wasn't just scary. It felt wrong, violating, like someone reached into a place that should belong only to me. And then I did the dumbest thing, the thing I always tell myself I'd never do. I challenged it. Out loud, I said something like, "Do it again." I know. I hate myself a little for that. I think a part of me was trying to take control back. Like if I dared it, maybe it would back off. Maybe it would prove I was imagining it. Maybe it would stop hovering at the edge of my life like some coward. But it didn't stop. I was in bed, half asleep, and I felt that same touch again, on the same side, like it had a preference, like it remembered. And then, I couldn't move. It's like something pinned me down, not gently, not playfully, like I was being held in place, like my body was no longer mine to command. And then something happened that I can't twist into a maybe it was nothing. I can't dress it up. I can't laugh it off. I woke up afterward feeling drained, like someone had taken a part of me and left the rest behind. I felt shaken and exposed and violated. That's the word, violated. And what's making it worse is that in the middle of all that fear, there was this awful, humiliating sense that it was doing it because I invited it, because I dared it, because I opened my mouth, because I thought I was stronger than whatever this is. Like it was saying, "Oh, you want to challenge me? Fine. I'm telling you this because I'm scared. I'm scared to be alone in my own house. I'm scared to go to sleep. I'm scared to shower. I'm scared I made something aware of me in a way I can't undo. And I keep going back and forth between this is real and something is attached to me, and I'm losing my mind and I'm going to ruin my life with paranoia. But my body remembers. My chest tightens even talking about it. I feel on edge in a way that doesn't match a normal nightmare. So I don't know what I provoked. I don't know what rules I broke. I don't know what to do next. I just know I don't want it to happen again. So there's this little routine I used to have, and honestly, I miss it sometimes. I'd load my yellow Labrador, her name was Lacey, into the car, and we'd drive just a bit outside our village. Not far, maybe a couple kilometers, just enough to get into that quiet countryside where the roads turn to dirt and the fields open up. Lacey was the kind of dog who didn't wander off like she had something to prove. She stayed near me, circled back often, always checking in, devoted in that calm, steady way dogs can be, like, "I'm here, I've got you." I'd park at the end of this little farm road, step out, light a cigarette, and let her stretch her legs and run. And the thing is, this wasn't some creepy place. It was the opposite. Wide open, flat land, marshy in spots, low brush, a few scattered trees, but mostly you could see everything in every direction. If someone was out there, you'd know. Sometimes you'd spot a distant tractor or maybe a jogger way off, but usually it was just us and the daylight. Still, I'm American, so you know how it is. Even in a safe place, I'm aware. I carried pepper spray, mostly out of habit, and I had a big dog, so I felt fine. But two things happened out there. Two separate trips, same spot, and neither one was scary exactly. That's what's weird. I wasn't panicked. I wasn't even shaking. I was just bothered, like something in me never quite filed it away. The first time, Lacey and I were standing there, just looking out over the brush, and I noticed this small brown leaf, just a regular dead leaf, dry, curled, nothing special. Except it wasn't falling. It was hanging, suspended in the air in front of us, at about eye level. And before you ask, no, there wasn't wind. The air was dead still, and there wasn't a branch above it, no bush holding it, no spiderweb strand that I could see, no filament catching the light, nothing. It just hovered there, moving the tiniest bit, like an inch back and forth, as if it was deciding whether to drift away, but never committing. And Lacey saw it too. That's part of what makes it stick in my head. She stopped running and came over and stared up at it, ears forward, that intense dog focus like she was watching a squirrel, except it was a leaf floating in midair. I stood there for, honestly, close to a full minute, just watching it like I was waiting for reality to correct itself. And then I reached out and plucked it. Just took it out of the air. It felt like a leaf. It looked like a leaf. It wasn't sticky. It wasn't caught on anything. I held it up for Lacey to sniff like, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And she leaned in like she was just as confused as I was. And then I did the only thing that felt sensible, which was, I got back in the car and we went home. Not terrified, just quietly unsettled, like I'd watched a magic trick performed by nobody. Then, maybe a week or two later, another sunny day, broad daylight again, we went back to the same place. Same dirt road, same open fields. Lacey hopped out, started trotting around, and I was standing near the car like usual. And then I heard a voice, clear as anything, from off to my left, somewhere out in the field. Not close, but not far either, like someone calling from maybe 100 meters away. And the voice said, plain as day, "Jules, I can see you. And I need you to understand what makes that so unsettling." Second, the voice was in perfect neutral English. No accent, no German lilt, nothing local about it at all. It sounded like it was meant for me, like it belonged to my world, not that field. And third, this is the part that still makes my skin prickle a little when I remember it. Lacey didn't react. Not even a head turn. If someone had spoken out there, I would have expected her to snap to attention, bark, run toward it, something. But she just kept sniffing around like she hadn't heard a thing. Meanwhile, I'm standing there frozen, staring at empty space, thinking, that's not possible. That's not possible. That's not possible. I didn't respond. I didn't call back. I didn't shout hello like a person in a movie. I just calmly, quickly, got us back in the car and drove home. And that's it. That's the whole story. No dramatic ending, no reveal, no explanation. I'm a spiritual person. I believe there are things we don't understand. But I'm not someone who chases spooky experiences. I wasn't out there looking for anything. And I wasn't traumatized by it. It's just that both moments had the same feeling. Not threatening, but wrong. Like the world glitched for a second and then kept going, and I was the only one who noticed. And even now, when I picture that open, quiet field in Germany, I still hear it sometimes, in my head, the way it sounded so casual and certain. "Jules, I can see you." So, a few months after my breakup, I started dating my girlfriend. Her name's Lena. And pretty quickly, she began coming over to my place all the time. From the beginning, she didn't like my apartment. She said the vibe felt off, like weirdly heavy. But honestly, I brushed it off. I figured it was just because she knew I'd lived there with my ex, and that alone can make a place feel strange, you know? But then, after a few weeks, maybe a couple months, 3 things happened that I still can't fully explain. The first one was sleep paralysis. I was 23, and it had never happened to me before. Not once. Suddenly, I'm waking up and I can't move, like my body is glued to the bed. No shadows in the corner, No figure standing over me, none of that. Just locked in place. At first, I tried to stay calm and tell myself it was just stress or something. And I found this trick where I could kind of shake myself out of it, like rocking my shoulders side to side until my body snapped awake again. Still, it was unsettling. It didn't feel normal. Then came the second thing, and this is the one that still gives me chills when I replay it. One night, I had a few friends over, like 3, maybe 4 of us. We were just hanging out, drinking a bit, smoking, laughing, playing music on Spotify through the TV. Normal night, nothing dramatic. Then one of my friends puts on this French rap track, someone he knew, like a friend of a friend. And I remember the timing so clearly because it was so stupidly perfect, it almost felt staged. Right after the intro, the first line comes in, something like, "This new vibe is really dark." And right as that line lands, everything shuts off. The TV dies. The music cuts mid-word. The apartment drops into darkness, and it's not just quiet. It's that thick, sudden silence that feels way too big for the room. Like someone pressed mute on the whole world. My friends were hyped, laughing like, "No way, that timing was insane." They thought it was the coolest coincidence ever, like a cinematic moment. But me? I swear my stomach dropped. I got that cold rush up my spine, like my body knew something my brain hadn't caught up with yet. And after that, I finally told them what Lena had been saying, how she felt like the place was weird, that it didn't feel right. Of course, that made them more excited. They immediately started joking about doing a Ouija board, calling spirits, all that. And I was like, absolutely not. Not in my house. I don't care how funny it is. No. About an hour later, the power comes back, and the rest of the night is normal, like nothing happened. Then, nothing for a while. Until another night, a few weeks later, maybe longer, I throw a small party again. This time there are like 5 or 6 people over, and the electricity goes out again. No dramatic timing this time, just annoying like, seriously? Not again. So we do the obvious thing. We put my phone on the table, throw on a playlist, and keep the night going until the power comes back. Music's playing, people are talking, it's fine. Then suddenly the music stops. At first I think the playlist ended, but it didn't. And then I realize my phone is buzzing. Someone's calling me. My phone is on silent, so the only sound is that low vibration rattling against the tabletop. And my phone is near the edge. The vibrations keep nudging it, millimeter by millimeter, until it finally slides off. It drops. Bang! Loud as hell. And I'm not exaggerating. The exact moment it hits the floor, the lights come back on. Electricity returns instantly, like the apartment waited for that impact as some kind of cue. And I'm standing there, with my heart pounding, just thinking, what are the odds of that? After that, nothing major happened again. No big dramatic power cuts with perfect timing. I eventually moved out a couple months later, mostly to be closer to work. But I'd be lying if I said those nights weren't in the back of my mind. Here's the thing. I'm not even religious. I'd call myself agnostic. I don't want to believe in ghosts. I'm usually the type to look for the boring explanation first. But those moments, they mess with you. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe the building had bad wiring. Maybe my phone falling and the power returning was just random timing. Or maybe, just maybe, something was there, and it really didn't like the music. I don't know. All I know is, since leaving that place, I haven't experienced anything like that again. That was around 2 years ago now. Although, I still get sleep paralysis sometimes. So, yeah, make of that what you want. So, this started a little over 2 weeks ago, and at first, I genuinely thought my doorbell camera was just acting up. I've got one of those smart doorbells, nothing fancy, but it usually does its job. The weird part was, during the day, it recorded perfectly. Clear video, normal motion alerts, everything. But at night, whenever it detected movement right in front of my door, the video would either glitch into a mess of static or just snap into a black screen like someone had shut its eyes. And I'm not helpless with tech, you know? I'm the kind of person who actually tries things before panicking. I rebooted the system, reconnected it to Wi-Fi, updated the app, even changed the settings like 3 different times. I unplugged it for a while and plugged it back in, thinking maybe it just needed a clean restart. Nothing changed. At first, I shrugged it off. I live on an older street, and sometimes the signal gets spotty, especially late at night when the weather's humid or the router decides to be dramatic. But then I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. It wasn't random. It happened at the exact same time, every night. 2:37, not 2:36, not 2:38, always 2:37, like it was scheduled. So yeah, curiosity got me. The next night, I decided I was going to watch the live feed. Not the recording after, live. I sat there with my phone in my hand, waiting, trying to convince myself I was being silly. I started watching at 2:36, and for a few seconds it was totally normal. In the weak orange light from the street lamp, I could see the empty sidewalk, a parked car down the street, tree branches moving a little in the breeze. Quiet, ordinary. Then, motion detected. The screen trembled, like the camera was struggling to focus. For a split second, I thought someone was walking up, but there was no body, no face, nothing. Just this crawling static, like interference crawling across the image. And then, black. Not dark because it's nighttime. I mean black, like the feed had been erased, like someone had pressed their palm over the lens. I remember standing up so fast my chair scraped the floor. I went straight to the window and pulled the curtain back, and I'm telling you, there was no one outside my door. The streetlights were still on. The road looked exactly the same as it always does. Everything looked normal. But I didn't feel normal. I waited, maybe a minute, maybe 2, long enough for my nerves to start buzzing in my arms. And then my phone feed suddenly returned like nothing had happened. Only, something had changed. Right in the center of the camera's view, near my doormat, there was a mark on the ground. And it didn't look like dirt. It looked like the pavement had briefly softened, like it had warped and then hardened again, like something heavy and wrong had pressed into it. The shape was what really got me. It wasn't a shoe print. It wasn't even a normal footprint. It was long and narrow, almost like a stretched handprint, but with 3 distinct, separated toes. Thin, pointed, too evenly spaced, like something that didn't bend the way it was supposed to bend. I didn't sleep after that. I tried, but every time I closed my eyes, I kept seeing that shape. The next morning I checked the footage. The 2:37 clip was missing, completely gone, like it had never existed. But what made my skin go cold wasn't the missing recording. It was something else the camera captured later. A single-frame snapshot at 4:09. Just one image saved by the system like a glitchy afterthought. 2 round eyes, bright, still, reflective, like an animal caught in headlights. Except they weren't angled like an animal's. They were level, centered, staring straight into the lens, like whatever it was knew exactly where to look. And since then, it keeps happening. Every night at the same time, 2:37, the feed breaks down, the footage disappears, like the camera is being punished for trying to see. But do you know the worst part? Last night, I was watching again. I told myself I wouldn't, but I did. I was staring at the screen, holding my breath, waiting for the moment it always happens. And right before the feed collapsed into black, I saw something in the reflection. Not on the sidewalk, not under the streetlight, in the shadow near my door, where the camera barely reaches. A shape. Tall, leaning, like it was bending forward, like it was trying to stay hidden but couldn't resist looking. And I swear to you, this is the part I can't stop thinking about. It wasn't looking at my door. It was looking at me, like it knew I was watching, like it had been waiting for me to notice. So, my boyfriend Evan and I moved into this house about 5 weeks ago, and I swear it's one of those places that feels normal until you're actually living in it. It's a simple layout, one main floor and then a fully finished basement. Nothing about the basement looks creepy. Clean walls, decent lighting, normal hallway. But the second you walk down there, your body just knows. Every single person who's visited has said some version of the same thing. I don't like it down here. And they always point to the same spot. The back bedroom, last door on the left. People joke about bad vibes, but nobody laughs while they're saying it. It's more like they're trying to convince themselves it's fine. And I hate that I agree. Every time I'm down there alone, I get this steady, crawling feeling, like someone is watching me from a place I can't see. Not a quick scare either. It's patient. Like it's been there longer than I have, and it's not in a hurry. Our first real experience happened about 3 weeks ago. The first night we actually stayed there after closing. We were upstairs, sitting on the couch, trying to relax, and we heard someone coughing from the basement. At first we did the whole, "it's just the house settling" thing, but it happened again. Not constantly, just enough to make us keep looking at each other like, "Did you hear that?" Along with that, there were these creaks, like careful footsteps, not random pops. And then it got worse, because when we finally went downstairs to check, the door to that back bedroom was open. Which doesn't sound dramatic, I know, except we keep every basement door shut. Always. It's become this weird habit already, like we're trying to keep the basement contained. We stared at that open door for a few seconds, and neither of us wanted to be the one to step closer. So we closed it, told ourselves it was a draft or something stupid, and went upstairs. That night, Evan woke up screaming, like full panic, pointing at the corner of our bedroom and yelling that someone was standing there. I turned on every light so fast I'm surprised I didn't break the switch. There was no one. Nothing. No movement, no shadow, no explanation. Just Evan shaking and sweating and staring at the corner like it had teeth. After that, we didn't really sleep. We did that half-sleep thing where your eyes close but your brain stays wide awake, listening. After that, things stayed mostly quiet. If you ignore the occasional groan from the basement or the weird little noises that make you pause mid-sentence. But then there's our cat. We brought her with us. She's usually sweet, a little clingy, normal cat stuff. But since we moved in, she's been different. Like someone swapped her out. She'll sit at the top of the basement stairs and just stare down for long stretches, ears forward, totally still. And when I'm alone, I keep catching her peeking around corners and watching me like she's tracking something I can't see. It's not cute. It's unsettling. Because it feels like she's looking past me. A few nights ago, Evan's parents temporarily moved in with us. They took the upstairs room, so Evan and I moved into the basement, but not the bad bedroom. We stayed in the room next to it, the one that shares a wall. The first night down there, we tried to pretend it was fine. We put on a movie, pulled up the blankets, forced normalcy. But while we were watching, we kept hearing little sounds from down the hall, like something sliding, something tipping over, soft thuds. We didn't talk about it at first. We just kept watching the screen harder, like ignoring it could erase it. And then the lights started flickering. Not a gentle little dim, like angry strobing. And then, gone. Total blackout. A minute later, the power snapped back on and stayed on, like nothing happened. But when the lights came back, the air felt different. I don't know how else to say that. Before, it felt like being watched. After the power came back, it felt like I wasn't welcome. Like something had finally noticed I could feel it, and it didn't like that. That night I barely slept, and when I did, the dreams were so real they made me nauseous. Violent, graphic dreams of me dying, over and over, different ways, like scenes someone was forcing me to watch. In one, something grabbed me in the shower and I couldn't scream. In another, there was a woman, up on the ceiling, staring straight down at us, like gravity didn't apply to her. And then there was a man in the corner again, always the corner, just standing there like he'd been waiting. When I woke up, my nails were bloody, like I'd been clawing at something, and I had scratches across my back and chest. I just sat there holding my breath, trying to figure out how that could even happen. I've never been someone who sleepwalks or thrashes. I've always been a calm sleeper. This wasn't normal. Last night was worse. I couldn't settle at all. I kept my music on because the silence down there feels heavy. But even with the music, I kept catching whispers underneath it, like soft voices woven into the air. Every time I paused the song to listen, everything went dead quiet, so quiet my ears rang. It felt like the house was holding its breath until I stopped paying attention again. And the dreams came back, violent again, and it was always the same two figures, the woman and the man, like they were repeating themselves, like they wanted me to remember them. This morning I woke up with my nails bloody again, and a single letter scratched into my chest. T. Not a random scratch, a clear shape. And then I heard knocking from the wall, the one we share with that back bedroom. A slow knock, like knuckles, then rustling, like something shifting on the other side, right up against the drywall. I just laid there staring, completely still, because I didn't want to give it anything. I didn't want it to know I was listening. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't feel safe in that house. Everyone feels something down there, but it only seems to focus on me, like I'm the easiest one to reach, or the one it wants. So tonight I'm staying with friends. I need to get out of that house, even if it's just for a night, because I can feel myself unraveling. I'm exhausted, I'm scared, and it feels like the basement is getting bolder. And the part that keeps looping in my head is this: what if it's not trying to scare me? What if it's trying to drive me out? So, growing up, my siblings and I had this weird normal in our house. Things we didn't even question after a while because it happened so often. We used to see these shadowy figures, not like a full person you could stare at, more like an outline, a pitch black shape you'd catch in the corner of your eye. One felt like a kid, and the other felt like an adult man, just from the height and the shape of them. And the second you'd turn your head to look straight at it, gone, like it was never there. They showed up in the same places too, mostly the upstairs bathroom and the basement bathroom, like those rooms were their spots. And on top of that, we'd hear heavy footsteps pacing around the house, even when we were home alone, or when all of us were piled into one room together. We always blamed the bigger shadow for that. In our heads, we literally had categories: the old man and the kid. And the kid, was a little menace. Sometimes you'd hear your name whispered from somewhere it absolutely shouldn't be coming from. Then this soft little laugh right after. like it thought it was hilarious. Toys would end up moved, turned around, shoved into weird places, just enough to make you doubt yourself for a second, and then feel your stomach drop. And the older one, the man, I swear I'd hear him do this deep, tired sigh, the kind adults make when they've had a long day and their bones feel heavy. That part weirdly creeped me out the most because it sounded so human. Okay, let me tell you the main thing, the story that still makes me feel cold when I think about it. One day, my brother and I decided we were going to decorate our room. And by decorate, I mean we raided the basement like we were little gremlins. Our mom had this habit of buying odd stuff from yard sales. Old paintings, dusty frames, random antique-looking things, and most of it ended up shoved downstairs. So we grabbed a bunch of old candles, a couple of those creepy paintings, and this one potted baby tree we found down there too. Like a little sapling in a pot, sitting in the dim basement like it had been waiting. We dragged it all upstairs, set everything up, and felt extremely proud of ourselves. Like we'd made our room into some kind of haunted museum. That night, we go to sleep. The next morning, my brother, let's call him Brady, comes rushing over to me with this look on his face like he just discovered a secret door in the house. He goes, "I saw him." And I'm like, "Saw who?" And Brady tells me, dead serious, that he saw a ghost last night, an older man, floating in our room. And not just floating randomly, he said it was attached to the tree. He described it so clearly it made my skin prickle. He said the ghost was kind of bluish-gray, like moonlight on fog. More visible up top, like the face and shoulders were the clearest part, and the lower you looked, the more it faded. No feet at all, just thinning into nothing. He said it would drift away from the tree, only a few feet, and then blink out. And then, instantly, it would reappear right beside the tree again, like the tree was an anchor and the ghost was on a leash. And then Brady says, like it's no big deal, "I reached out to touch it." My stomach dropped when he said that. Now here's the thing. I half believed him, and half didn't want to. But I was also the younger brother, and I wanted to seem brave. So I did what younger brothers do. I lied. I told him, with a straight face, that I see ghosts all the time. That once I even saw something like a 3-headed dragon ghost when I went downstairs for water at night. Which is extra funny because I was terrified of going downstairs alone at night. I wouldn't do that for $1 million. But Brady's eyes got huge, like I was suddenly the coolest person alive. And he believed me, because after what he'd just experienced, why wouldn't he? Then comes the next night, and that's when it was my turn. I'd been watching TV downstairs and fell asleep on the couch, something I apparently did a lot. At some point, my dad carried me upstairs, tossed me onto my bed, and, bless him, didn't bother with a blanket. Just, "Good night, kid. Survive." So later I wake up freezing. Half asleep, shivering, I reach out to grab my blanket. And I see a man floating in my room. Not a shadow this time. Not a corner of the eye thing. A full-on see-through man. Everything Brady described was right. The pale glow, the clearer face, the body fading as it went down, the way it hovered like gravity didn't apply, and the tree still in the corner, like it was the center of the whole thing. And I just lost it. I screamed like something was trying to kill me, and the moment I screamed, the ghost drifted toward me. Not fast, not charging, just gliding closer, like it was curious, or maybe like my fear pulled it in. Then it disappeared, and reappeared at the tree, then floated toward me again. And I'm crying now, full panic, the kind where your chest hurts and you can't get enough air, and I'm backing into my pillow like that's going to save me. My dad comes running in, because obviously, and he's scanning the room like there's an intruder. And then he sees it. I'll never forget that part, because my dad didn't freeze. He didn't scream. He just reached for the switch and flipped the light on. And the second the light hit the room, the ghost was gone, like it never existed. I looked at my dad and I was like, "Did you see it?" And he hesitated, just long enough. Then he goes, "It's probably just a reflection." And I wanted to believe him so badly. I needed it to be a reflection. But even at that age, I was like, a reflection doesn't float. So I asked him how a reflection can drift around the room, disappear, reappear by the tree, and move toward me. And my dad, trying to be gentle, finally admits it. He tells me he didn't want to scare me, but yeah, it wasn't a reflection. It was a ghost. He tells me to sleep in my mom's room, and that night I curled up with them, shaking and exhausted, and I still had nightmares. And the wildest part? Brady and my dad later slept in our room again, with the lights off, like it was no big deal. Like having a pale, tired-looking man casually floating near a baby tree in the corner was just another Tuesday. Meanwhile, I'm in the other room, clinging to my mom, wondering how anyone on earth could fall asleep with that hanging over their heads. So, this is mostly a summary, but I'll try to tell it the way it actually felt. A while back, I got into a really ugly fight with my parents, right in the middle of moving out. I was packing up my life, trying to get to my sister's place, and the whole thing just exploded. And when it was over, I didn't feel relief. I felt hollow, like something in me cracked and didn't bounce back. I've dealt with depression for as long as I can remember, but that argument pushed me into a deeper place than usual. I started coping in ways I'm not proud of, sleeping way too much, shutting everyone out, and, yeah, hurting myself. Not in a dramatic way, just in that quiet, private way that feels like you're trying to turn your brain off for a second. For days, I barely ate. I barely left the room. I'd wake up, stare at the ceiling, and then crawl right back into sleep like it was the only place I didn't have to pretend I was okay. And then I had this dream. Quick thing about me, I almost never have nightmares and I hardly ever remember my dreams. The only time I have intense ones is if I fall asleep flat on my back, which I normally avoid. But this time, I did. And I remembered it. Not clearly, though. It's weird. Every time I try to replay it in my head, it's like my mind smears it on purpose. Like it's trying to protect me by making it slippery. In the dream, I'm lying in my bed. Everything looks normal. Same room, same blankets, same dim light. But I can't move. And I know what you're thinking. Sleep paralysis. But it wasn't that. I wasn't awake. I knew I was dreaming. It was like being trapped inside a dream version of my body. And at the foot of my bed, there was something standing there. I knew, without even questioning it, that it was a demon. I can't tell you what it looked like. I can't tell you its face or the sound of its voice. Every time I try, my brain goes foggy, like the details are behind frosted glass. Honestly, I stopped forcing it. It feels like something I'm not meant to pull back into focus. But here's the part that still messes with me. I wasn't scared. I should have been terrified, right? But I wasn't. I felt calm. Almost like I understood it couldn't actually hurt me unless I gave it permission. And then it spoke. Not loudly. More like it slid the words into the room. I don't remember the exact sentence, but it was something like, "I know you're exhausted. I can carry this for you. Just let me in and I'll end the pain." It kept going. It was persuasive, almost gentle, like it was offering a solution, not a threat. Like it wanted me to hand my life over and stop fighting, and it would take care of everything for me. And I remember thinking, even in the dream, that's not help. That's a trap. The ridiculous part is, I couldn't even respond. I was frozen. Like, "Sorry, buddy, I literally can't answer you right now." Then I woke up. At first, the dream felt like any other weird nightmare that fades by lunchtime. I remember sitting there thinking, okay, that was unsettling. Anyway. But later that night, I got in the shower, and when the water hit my chest, I looked down and just stopped. There were scratches, fresh looking, like they'd happened recently. Not deep enough to be bleeding badly or anything, but clearly there. And it wasn't random. There was a pattern, like someone had tried to write something with nails. Except now it's all I can think about. The marks looked like symbols, or maybe Roman numerals. The closest I can describe it is something like IIVII, or maybe IIXII. My memory keeps flipping it around, like it can't settle on the exact order. I remember staring at it in the mirror, trying to translate it into a number, thinking maybe it meant 27. But then I caught myself because Roman numerals don't really work like that. So I just stood there, water running, staring at those scratches, feeling this cold, heavy question settle in my stomach. If that dream was just a dream, why did I wake up with something carved into my skin? Hey, so I want to tell you something that still gives me chills when I think about it. This isn't a made-up story, and I'm not trying to dramatize anything. These were things my family and I genuinely lived through over a couple of years, around 2019 to 2021, when life moved us from our hometown into the city. It was just the three of us then, my mom, my younger sister, her name's Rhea, and me. I'd been living in my college hostel before that, but once Mom and Rhea relocated to the city for the last stretch of my degree, we rented a small apartment so we could finally be together. The place was simple. A tight little living room, a kitchen, and at the far end of the living room, there was this short corridor leading to the bathroom. 2 bedrooms faced each other across that corridor. Nothing fancy, nothing unusual at first glance. But the very first night, we slept in the living room, all 3 of us. And before dawn, around 5:20 in the morning, Rhea suddenly shook me and my mom awake. Her voice was trembling. She kept saying, "Someone's there. Someone's standing near the bathroom." Me and Mom, half asleep and trying not to scare her, brushed it off as a nightmare. You know how younger siblings can wake up and you just want to calm them down. But later that same day, she wouldn't let it go. She said she didn't just feel something, she saw something. A shadow-like figure. And the detail that made my stomach drop even then. She said it looked impossibly tall, like 6.5 feet, maybe taller, just standing there in the corridor. Mom told her to pray before sleeping. We tried to move on, and for a while, nothing happened. But something shifted in the house anyway. A few months went by and we started fighting, constantly. Not normal disagreements. I mean the kind of arguments that erupt out of nowhere, over the smallest things, and somehow become huge. The air in that apartment felt heavy, like we were all on edge without knowing why. Sometimes it would take days, weeks, for things to calm down. Then one evening, Rhea was in one of the bedrooms, standing in front of the mirror, combing her hair. And suddenly, she sprinted out like she was being chased. She was pale. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped the comb on the floor and didn't even think to pick it up. She said, "I saw an old woman, not in the room, in the mirror." She swore she saw the face of an elderly woman hovering just above her head in the reflection, like someone had leaned in behind her. That was the first time my mom and I looked at each other and didn't immediately say, "It's nothing." That night, we called my dad. He was working abroad at the time, and when we told him everything, especially the part about the figure and the mirror, he didn't argue with us. He just said, very calmly, "Start looking for another place." We tried. Honestly, we did. But it was one problem after another: budget, distance, availability. And since we were both nearing the end of our studies, we kept telling ourselves, just get through this, just one more year. Then came the incident I can still picture like a photograph. One afternoon, I went with my mom to a nearby supermarket to grab groceries. We were gone for what we thought would be no more than 10 minutes. It was bright daylight, and Ria agreed to stay home because, daytime felt safer. When we left, she was sitting on the sofa watching TV. And then, while she was alone, the power suddenly cut out. The screen went black, not standing this time. Sitting. Close. She told me later she couldn't even breathe properly. She didn't dare turn her head. She just froze, staring straight ahead, praying we'd come back fast. And when my mom and I opened the door, it was like the air changed. She said the figure vanished the moment we walked in, like it had never been there. After that, everything got worse because the world shut down. COVID hit, lockdown started, and we were trapped inside that apartment for months with online classes. No escape, no normal routines, no easy way to hunt for a new place. The walls felt closer every day. Then one night, this is the moment that finally broke something inside me. Ria and I were watching TV in the living room. Mom went to the bathroom. My phone started ringing and it was in the bedroom. So I got up and walked from the living room into the bedroom to grab it. And the second I stepped in, Ria screamed. Not just called out, she screamed, "Mom! Mom!" Mom rushed out of the bathroom, and I ran back into the living room, phone forgotten. Ria was shaking so hard, her whole body looked like it was shivering from cold. But the room wasn't cold. She could barely speak, but she forced the words out. She said she saw the tall shadow figure move, fast, across the doorway of the room I'd just entered, and disappear into the other bedroom. Like it was watching us, tracking us, and it didn't care that we were all awake. After that, we started praying every day. Not casually, seriously. Morning, evening, whenever the air felt wrong. And slowly, the strange things started happening less. Not completely gone, but quieter. Like whatever it was didn't like being noticed. Eventually, I finished college. Ria finished high school. We never found another apartment in time, so we packed up and went back to our hometown the moment we could. And I remember my mom saying, almost like a promise to herself, "We're never coming back here again." Because some places don't just feel uncomfortable. Some places feel wrong. And I know it sounds cinematic. I know it sounds like the kind of thing you'd see in a movie and roll your eyes at. But this happened to us. All of it. Now Ria and I have moved on with our lives. We actually left the country and we live in Dubai now. But even here, even in a bright, busy city full of people, sometimes, when I wake up too early, when it's still dark and quiet, I still think of that corridor, and the way my sister's voice sounded the first time she whispered, "Someone's there." So, this is one of those things I don't tell people right away, because it sounds like something you'd brush off as a weird childhood phase. But I remember it too clearly for that. When I was little, around 5 or 6, I started having these dreams about a black panther. At first, it was almost ordinary, in that strange way kid dreams can be. He'd show up, watch me, then disappear. Nothing dramatic, nothing that screamed nightmare. And then, the second or third time I dreamed about him, the whole thing turned. He wasn't just there anymore. He became hostile, like he'd decided I belonged to him, like my fear was the point. In the dreams, he'd creep into my room and perch on my chest, heavy as a boulder, like he was pinning my spirit down as much as my body. And he'd taunt me in this low, rasping hiss from somewhere across the room. I see you. I can still hear it. I'm not exaggerating. I can still hear the way it stretched out, like he enjoyed making the words crawl under my skin. That's actually how he got his name, at least the name I gave him. I didn't call him I see. Not exactly. In my head it came out as something like Izai, a kid's version of the sound that haunted me. And what makes it creepier is that it didn't start in every house. It started in that house. My family had just moved. Before that, we were living in an older place that belonged to a relative, and the whole situation ended badly. We had to leave fast, and it wasn't exactly gentle or mutual. My parents found a new townhouse in a quieter neighborhood, the kind of place where kids ride bikes outside, and you can hear dinner being cooked through open windows. On paper, it was a fresh start. But inside that townhouse, there was this constant undercurrent, like the air was heavier than it should have been. My brothers were tiny then, 3 and 4 maybe, and their room was right next to mine. They didn't talk about nightmares the way I did. They mostly just hated one part of the house with this stubborn, immediate panic that only little kids seem capable of: the basement. The basement itself wasn't even gross. It was finished. Couch space, a TV stand, enough room to play. But there was a corner down there that nobody lingered near. A small bathroom, and beside it a storage room, almost like a little cellar. Nothing dramatic about it, just 2 plain doors. Except every single person in my family avoided those doors like they were hot. We didn't store anything in that bathroom. No hand soap, no extra towels, nothing. And the storage room stayed mostly empty, except for a couple random boxes, like the previous owners had fled mid-unpacking, and we'd silently agreed not to touch whatever feeling lived in there. That was the part everyone felt. But Izai, he felt like he was mine. It started happening whenever I did anything wrong. And I mean kid wrong, not criminal, not evil, just human mistakes. If I spilled juice and my mom sighed, if I forgot homework, if I got a mark on a quiz that wasn't perfect, if I snapped at one of my brothers and felt guilty afterward. That's when the dreams would come. I'd fall asleep fine, and then I'd wake up, at least I thought I was waking up, with that instant stomach-dropping dread, like my body knew before my brain did. And then I'd hear it. I see you. Sometimes it was from the corner of my room. Sometimes it felt like it came from the doorway. Sometimes it sounded like it was right next to my ear, even when I couldn't move my head. The pressure on my chest would follow. Not like a blanket, not like being hugged, like something with intention had decided to sit down on me and keep me there. It didn't just scare me at night. It made me afraid of living during the day. I became this tiny little perfectionist, terrified of making mistakes, terrified of being noticed by whatever it was. I second-guessed everything, even normal kid stuff. Laughing too loud, stepping wrong, saying the wrong thing, felt like it might summon him again. After a while, I stopped telling my parents every time it happened. Not because I didn't want help, but because how do you explain that something is punishing you for being imperfect? How do you describe a panther that isn't really a panther? More like a dark shape with ears and a tail, a presence with weight. It went on for months, maybe longer. Time gets fuzzy when you're that small. But I remember the night it peaked, because it was the first time I tried to fight it. I woke up with that dread already pouring through me like cold water. I knew he was coming, before the voice, before the weight. So I sprang out of bed and ran for my parents' room. I tried to scream. I tried so hard. Nothing came out. Not even a whisper. And then, like someone had rewound a tape, I was suddenly back in my bed again, flat on my back, with that crushing weight on my chest like I'd never moved at all. That was the moment I realized I couldn't escape him inside those dreams. It didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter how fast I ran. I was caught the second he decided I was caught. And then, it stopped. But not the way you'd expect. One night, I didn't wake up into terror. I just arrived somewhere. In the dream, I was walking beside him, and it wasn't my street. It was the playground from the older townhouse complex, the one we'd lived in before everything fell apart. The sun was going down, and the whole sky was painted this soft mix of peach and pink, like someone had rubbed warmth into the clouds. Everything felt muffled, like the world was holding its breath. And Isaiah was calm. Not looming, not threatening, just walking with me, like we were two people sharing a quiet moment. Then he did something that still messes with me when I think about it. He apologized. He told me he was sorry for everything. He said he had to do it, that it was his job, like he'd been assigned to me, like he was a role that had to be played until the lesson was done. He said this would be the last time I'd see him. And then he said something that made my whole chest ache, even in the dream. He told me he was going to move on to another child, that he would miss me. I remember staring at him, still afraid, still confused, because how do you feel relief and grief at the same time for something that terrified you? At the end of that dream, he hugged me. Not crushing, not trapping. A real hug, brief, almost careful. And I woke up sweating, heart racing, but with this strange, clean feeling, like the air in my room had finally cleared. I went back to sleep, and for the first time in months, I slept like a normal kid. That was the last time. I'm older now, grown, living far away from that place, with a whole different life. And still, even now, I can remember his voice, that rasp, that hiss, the weight on my chest, the silhouette, dark, faceless, unmistakable. I know people will want to label it. Sleep paralysis, stress, trauma, a child's brain trying to process a scary move and an unstable home situation. Maybe. And I don't think I'll ever fully understand why. But I'll also never forget the way he said it. I see you. Hey, so this is a short one, but it's stuck with me for years. I still find myself replaying it in my head, like my brain never filed it away properly. Back in 2013, my family and I were living in this older apartment that had been carved out of what used to be a full-sized house. You could feel that history in it. 2 floors, an attic space, even a basement below us. It was the kind of place where the floors creaked in a way that made you think you heard footsteps, even when you knew you were alone. That day was totally normal. My son was at school, my wife was at work, and I was home by myself, just sitting in my chair in the living room, half watching TV, half zoning out. I remember feeling comfortable, safe, like the world was on pause. And then, this bang. Not like a knock, not like something falling, a bang that sounded like the air itself got punched. Before I could even stand up, 3 people came rushing in, all masked, all moving fast, like they'd done it before. My mind couldn't catch up. I was just staring at them like I'd suddenly been dropped into the wrong movie. One of them raised a gun and pointed it straight at my head. I didn't even have time to speak. There was a flash, a crack, this sharp, violent sound, and I felt something slam into my head. It wasn't like getting punched. It was heavier than that, like a hard impact that stole the strength from my whole body in one instant. I remember going limp, and I distinctly remember the back of my head hitting the chair as I folded. And then the strangest part happened. I couldn't move, couldn't lift a finger, couldn't even flinch, but I felt like I was sinking, like my body was dropping through the chair. It was like the chair stopped being solid, and I just slid through it into this dark space beneath everything. But here's the thing. Even though it felt like I was falling into darkness, I could still see my living room. I could see the TV glow. I could see my body slumped there. I could see the 3 masked people. It's hard to explain without sounding dramatic, but it felt like I was somewhere else and still in the room at the same time. Like my perspective had detached from me, but didn't leave. I don't think it lasted long. In that weird, dark underplace, time didn't feel normal. But I remember 2 of them staying near the doorway, watching, while the one with the gun started messing with stuff on the entertainment center, moving things around like he was searching for something specific. And then, just like that, I snapped awake. I came back in my body like someone shoved me into it. I was drenched in sweat. Not a little sweat, like I'd run a race in my clothes. The back of my chair was wet. My head felt unbearable, like the front half of my skull had been crushed inward. It was this deep, splitting migraine that made the room tilt and blur. I stood up, and my balance was messed up right away. My legs felt weak, like they weren't fully mine yet. I stumbled to the kitchen, grabbed a cold bottle of water, and then went to the bathroom and dug around for something, anything. So I took some Excedrin and tried to breathe through it. And the part that makes me question myself to this day, there was no sign of anything. No forced door, no mess, no evidence anything had happened at all. It was like it had been wiped out, like I'd dreamed it, except my body was reacting like I'd survived something real. So I did the only thing I could afford. I stayed home, tried to keep my head still, and spent the rest of the day feeling shaken and miserable, like my nervous system had been grabbed and rattled. Nothing like that has ever happened to me before or since, not even close. But I think about it all the time, because I can't decide what's scarier, that it really happened, or that my mind and body could make something feel that real and leave me with pain like a warning. Hello, Paranormal M viewers. How's your day going? Still having trouble sleeping? I'm truly happy and feel really lucky to be here sharing my paranormal experiences with all of you. Thank you so much for sending in your own stories. And don't forget to drop a comment below and let me know how your day was. I read every single one. Now, let's dive into today's paranormal experience. Please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Alright, so for most of my early 20s, I was that guy. You know the one. The loud, smug, there's no such thing as ghosts type, who'd roll his eyes at anyone talking about spirits, UFOs, anything remotely out there. If someone brought it up in the pub, I'd take the piss like it was my job. My whole worldview was tiny and tight and boring. And I honestly thought that made me clever. Back then, I was living with my girlfriend at the time. Let's call her Hannah. And on her street, there was this big corner house that always stood out. Tall fence all the way around it, neat as anything, like it was guarding some secret little world. In the middle of the fence, there was this small gate where you could peek into the garden, and it was immaculate. Trimmed hedges, tidy paths, flowers that looked like someone fussed over them every single day. An elderly woman lived there alone. I didn't know her name then, so I'll just call her Mrs. Doyle. You'd see her constantly, slowly pottering about, then stopping by that little gate like it was her favorite post in the universe. She'd chat to neighbors, watch the street, smile politely, have a little nosy. Just a familiar presence, really. The kind of person you don't think much about until they're suddenly not there. I never actually spoke to her, not properly. I'd see her loads, but I was always in my own bubble. Head down, on my way somewhere, thinking I had life all figured out. And then this happened. One night, I remember it clearly because it was so ordinary right up until it wasn't. I got back to Hannah's place around 10:45 p.m., give or take. I'd been around my mate Callum's for a bit. Nothing weird, no spooky mood, no scary stories, just a normal night. I pulled up and parked along the curb, right near that corner house. It was dark, quiet, streetlights humming like they do, and I genuinely wasn't thinking about anything at all. I turned the engine off, stepped out, and as I swung the car door shut, I noticed something that made my stomach do this weird little drop. There was light. Not like a car headlight, not like a phone screen. It was coming from the gate in the fence, the one you could see through. So I looked, and standing there, behind the little gate, was Mrs. Doyle. Only it wasn't her, not the way you'd normally see her. She looked like a figure made of mist and air, translucent, foggy around the edges. And she was giving off this pale white glow that wasn't just on her, it spilled outward like it had weight. The fence beside the gate actually looked brighter, like it was being lit up by her. I remember thinking, in the most ridiculous, automatic way, what the hell kind of light is that? Then she turned her head and looked straight at me. And I swear to you, this wasn't some vague, I felt watched thing. Our eyes met. It was a moment of direct acknowledgement, like she'd noticed me noticing her. And as soon as we locked eyes, she moved. But not like a person stepping back or turning away. She drifted sideways, smooth and silent, like she was gliding, like the air itself was carrying her. And she slid behind the fence line and was just gone. Not vanished in a dramatic flash, just removed from my view in a way that didn't follow normal movement. You imagined it. You're tired. Streetlight reflection. Your eyes adjusted weird. Anything that didn't involve admitting what I'd just seen. I went inside, still trying to laugh it off because that's what I always did. Hannah was in the living room, and I said something like, trying to sound casual, but my voice was shaky. You're going to think I'm losing it, but I'm pretty sure I just saw, like, a ghost by the old woman's gate. And Hannah just looked at me, completely calm, and went, "You do know she passed away a few days ago, right?" It hit me like someone dumped ice water down my spine. I just stopped, like my body didn't know what to do next. Because that sentence, those words, took what I'd been desperately trying to turn into a mistake, and it pinned it to the wall as something real. I felt my face go hot, then cold. My eyes started watering without me even understanding why. I wasn't sobbing like in a movie, but I was in this raw, stunned state where everything felt too sharp and too loud and too true. I kept replaying the scene in my head on a loop. The glow, her shape, the fence lighting up, the look, the drifting motion. I must have paced the room for ages. I probably sounded mad. And honestly, thinking back now, it's almost funny, because I'd spent years mocking people for having exactly the kind of reaction I was having. But in that moment, I wasn't laughing. I was terrified, yeah, But more than that, I was shaken to the core, like a pillar inside me had cracked. Because I didn't just believe something then, I knew something. And once that door opens in your mind, you can't close it again. That was the start of this whole turning point for me. Suddenly it wasn't, are ghosts real? It became, okay, if that was real, then what else have I been arrogantly dismissing? I went from someone with a narrow little worldview to someone who couldn't stop asking questions. I started reading, listening, learning. Not in a paranoid way, not like I was hunting spooks in the dark, but like someone who'd realized the map they'd been using their whole life was missing entire continents. And look, I'm not here to convince you. I don't even blame anyone who rolls their eyes. If you'd told the old version of me this story, I would have laughed in your face. But I saw what I saw. And there's a difference between entertaining ghost stories, or even choosing to believe them, and knowing, because you've had your own moment where reality doesn't give you a choice. That night by the gate did that to me, and I've never been the same since. Okay, so let me tell you about this place that still makes my stomach tighten when I think about it. Two of my friends, Milo and Rin, moved into this neighborhood that's packed with condos, and every building has a name. Like, they're all named after different cities in my country. It sounds kind of cute at first, right? Like a themed little village. But one building across from theirs, that one felt different. It faced the main road, and it was huge. Basically, two buildings fused together, like someone decided one condo block wasn't enough. And because it was so big, with so many corners and stairwells and echoey spaces, it became our default hangout spot whenever we visited. We'd run around, play games, dare each other to go up floors alone, stuff like that. We called everyone by nicknames because our friend group was honestly a whole crowd. It made it easier, and it also made everything feel like a game. Like we were all characters. Until the building started acting like it was playing back. One night, way too late, like after midnight late, we were heading back to Milo and Rin's place, and we split into two groups. I was walking outside with Milo and my friend Jay, sticking to the road. My sister Nina went with Rin, and they decided to cut through the big building, like it was no big deal. Nina thought it'd be funny to scare Rin, so she ducked behind one of those thick concrete pillars near the entrance. She waited, quiet as a statue. But Rin didn't react. He looked around for her for a second, got bored or confused, and just left. He thought she'd walked ahead, and Nina, still hiding, didn't realize he was already gone. And then she heard footsteps upstairs. Not loud, just enough to make her freeze. She heard people on the second floor, and she swore she heard me and Rin whispering and giggling like we were messing around up there, like we were calling to her without actually calling to her. So she ran up the stairs, fast, like, I'm gonna catch you guys fast. But when she reached the second floor, it was empty, completely. No me, no Rin, no shadows moving, no laughter, just the sound of her breathing and the building's weird, hollow quiet. She got that panicky feeling where you suddenly don't want to be loud anymore. So she called my phone. And this is the part that makes my skin prickle every time. Not from her phone, from inside the building, from the ground floor. Like my phone was downstairs ringing somewhere behind her. But then the call got rejected. She called again, hands shaking at this point, and this time I answered normally, like I was just walking along outside like nothing had happened. She asked, "Where are you?" And I told her, "We're outside. We already passed the building." And she went silent for a second, then said, "I just heard you upstairs." When she explained everything, we didn't even try to act brave. We ran back to the apartment, and for the first time I remember thinking, that building can imitate us. And even with that, because we were stubborn, and because we always convince ourselves things are probably nothing, we still kept playing there. A few nights later, we were playing this variation of infection hide and seek. Everyone was searching except Rin. Rin hid in one of those, between the second and third floor. I was on the stairs between the first and second floor, going up slowly, trying not to make noise, listening. And right as I got close to the second floor, I heard Rin laughing from the first floor. And I heard Jay too, clear as day, laughing and saying something like, "Got you. I found you." So my brain immediately went, oh, game's over. Rin got caught. I bolted back down the stairs, expecting to see them. Nothing. Nobody. Just empty stairwell. The kind of empty that feels like it's watching you. So I messaged the group like, okay, stop the game, meet at the bottom. Everyone came down and I asked Rin and Jay, were you guys downstairs just now? Both of them looked genuinely confused. Rin said, no, I never left the closet. Jay said, I was on the fourth floor the whole time. And I just stared at them because I knew what I heard. I knew it. That was the night we stopped playing in that building for real. Not like, haha, okay, we're done for now, but like a quiet group decision nobody had to say out loud. We still went out at night sometimes, grab snacks, walk around, go to the playground, but we avoided that place. Then something happened that made it feel like the building wasn't just messing with us when we were there. Weeks later, my sister and I were at home in a totally different city, nowhere near that neighborhood, and Rin messaged her angry out of nowhere. He was like, why didn't you tell me your family came to my area? Nina was confused and told him, we're literally at home. But he insisted. He said he saw someone who looked exactly like her walking into that same big building across the street while he was out walking his dog. And he said his dog, the second it saw her, just stopped, like it refused to keep walking. And when he realized we weren't there, he didn't even argue anymore. He just went quiet and said he was going home, like he didn't want to talk about it once it became real. The last really weird thing happened when it was just the three of us, me, Nina, and Rin. We'd gone to buy snacks from a store nearby and headed back to Rin's building. We got into the elevator and pressed the third floor. It took forever. When it finally opened, the doors slid apart and we weren't on the third floor. We were at the top level, the laundry/storage floor. This massive open area where people keep old furniture and boxes and random stuff. And no one was there. It wasn't even creepy in a dramatic way. It was creepy in a, why is it so quiet and why are we alone up here way? We told ourselves someone must have pressed a button earlier and the elevator just glitched. So we got back inside and hit the third floor again. We stayed close together this time, trying to laugh it off because that's what you do when you're scared but don't want to admit it. The elevator moved. The doors opened. Fourth floor. We aerified. And then we saw this guy standing there waiting to get in, looking at us like we were completely insane. We apologized 1,000 times, mortified, and decided we were done trusting elevators for the night. We took the stairs. And the thing is, this neighborhood isn't even ancient. It's like maybe 20-ish years old. Not some crumbling haunted site. I never even looked up whether anything happened there before my friends moved in. But I'll tell you this. I believe in paranormal stuff. I always have. I've seen and heard things since I was little. Little shadows, strange noises, the kind of stuff people try to explain away for you. But whatever was going on in that building felt different from anything I'd experienced before, because it didn't just feel like something was there. It felt like something was trying to join our group, copying voices, copying laughter, copying people. And the scariest part is still not knowing whether it was trying to lure us somewhere, or if it was just playing with us because it could. So this happened in early October. One of those afternoons where lunch is long gone, but the day still hasn't decided to let go of the light. My family and I were heading back down the Franklin Trail near Black Diamond. The forest felt washed out and hushed, like everything had been softened around the edges. A thin fog hung between the trunks, and this cold, light rain kept ticking against the leaves overhead, steady, gentle, almost patient. And as we walked, the old mining town ruins sat scattered around us, like memories that didn't know they were supposed to disappear. Stone foundations, half-swallowed lines where houses used to be, empty rectangles of space where whole lives once happened, kitchens, beds, arguments, laughter. Gone, but not entirely gone. We were moving downhill, and I remember turning, maybe not all the way around, just enough to glance back up at my family. I wanted to see where everyone was, who was talking, who was lagging behind. But before I even found their faces, something else pulled my attention. Across this open stretch, where the houses used to stand, I saw a figure slide into view. Not walk, not step, just glide. Slow, smooth, deliberate. Like it knew the layout of that place better than I did. Like it was following a route that had been familiar for a very long time. It looked adult-sized, but it wasn't solid. It had that strange, half-there quality, like it was made of wet air and shadow instead of skin and fabric. I couldn't really make out legs at all, just this upper body moving quietly through the space. One arm was lifted slightly, like it was carrying something small, or maybe holding something close. And here's the part that still makes my stomach go a little tight. It didn't feel evil. It didn't feel aggressive. It felt calm, too calm, like the whole forest paused out of respect while it passed. That kind of calm that makes you feel noticed, but not threatened. Like you've been seen, acknowledged, and then politely dismissed. I started to turn fully toward it, and I swear I wasn't even completely facing it yet, maybe 3/4 of the way around, when it just thinned out, broke apart into the fog like breath in cold air. 1 second it was there, and the next it was nothing but mist and rain. I didn't say a word. I told myself the usual things. It was the light, the fog, my brain filling in shapes. I kept it tucked inside, quiet, because I didn't want to be the person who makes everyone uneasy on a family hike. And then my little brother, Miles, who was about 5 back then, trailing behind us a little ways, suddenly caught up and took my mom's hand. And in this small, matter-of-fact voice, like he was asking about a bird or a trail sign, he said, "Mom, who was that man that just went by?" No fear, no drama, just a simple question. And my mom looked around, confused, because there wasn't anyone there. No footsteps, no voices, no other hikers passing us. Nothing moving except the rain and the fog drifting through the trees. And I remember standing there thinking, okay, so it wasn't just me. To this day, that moment stays with me. The quiet drizzle, the ruins sitting there like a half-remembered story, and that figure moving through a town that technically doesn't exist anymore. And sometimes I wonder, did we both see the same thing? Or did that place show each of us our own version of someone who never really left Franklin at all? was little, maybe 7 or 8, somewhere around there. Something happened that I still can't neatly explain, no matter how many times I turn it over in my head. I wasn't half asleep. It wasn't one of those scary dreams that lingers when you wake up, and it definitely wasn't sleep paralysis. I've dealt with that later in life, and it's its own very specific kind of awful. This felt different. This felt real, like the kind of memory that has edges. I remember being in the living room at the back of the house, curled up on the carpet, watching some cartoon on TV. My Aunt Leanne, was on the couch behind me, wrapped in a blanket, and she says in this casual voice, "Hey, can you grab my thick socks from my room? My feet are freezing." And I did that kid thing where you immediately picture the darkest part of the house and decide it's basically another dimension. I went, "But it's dark down there. I don't want to." She chuckled like I was being dramatic and said, "Oh, stop it. We're right here. You'll be fine." So I got up. To get to her room, you had to pass this short little hallway that cut by the front sitting room, the one we barely used. During the day, it was just a boring, empty room with a big window and a couple of chairs that never got sat in. At night, though, it felt like a mouth, like it could swallow sound. The hall itself was dim, but the front room was almost completely dark. No lamp, no glow, just this heavy shadow pooled in the corners. I remember stepping forward and feeling that sudden, sharp wrongness. You know how your stomach drops when you realize you left your bag somewhere? Like that, but colder. Like my body knew something before my brain caught up. And then I saw them. Eyes. Not a reflection, not a trick of light. 2 bright yellow-orange eyes, round and fixed, staring straight through me like I was the only thing in the world. They weren't blinking. They weren't moving. Just there. And in that same instant, I noticed the shape attached to them. This tall, dark figure standing in the corner of the front room, half hidden by shadow. He had this silhouette that didn't make sense in a normal house. A wide brim hat, something like a long coat or cloak hanging off him. And those eyes, those awful, glowing eyes, were the only clear feature. I stopped so hard I swear my whole body locked up. I tried to shout back to Aunt Leanne. I tried to make any sound at all, but nothing came out. It's like my throat forgot how to work. My arms felt heavy. My legs felt rooted. And the worst part? He called me over. I can't tell you if I heard actual words. I can't honestly say he said, "Come here," out loud. But I knew what he wanted the same way you know when someone behind you is staring. It was like the instruction landed inside me without using sound. And even though every part of me was panicking, my feet started moving. Slow. One step, then another. Like I was being pulled by an invisible string. I remember thinking, please don't make me go closer. Please let me stop. But I couldn't. I walked right up to the edge of that darkness, right up to him, until I was standing so close those eyes filled my entire world. And then he lunged. Not like a person, not like a normal movement. He just pounced, like a sudden force dropping on top of me, and everything exploded into chaos. And there was this sound, a rapid, relentless sound, like shh, 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 almost mechanical, almost like something rattling right by my ear. It didn't hurt exactly, but I knew, deep, instinctive knowing, that I was being attacked. Like my body understood the message, this is it. You're not getting out of this. And then, nothing. That's the part that still makes my skin prickle when I think about it. There's no moment where I woke up. No stumbling back down the hall. No running to Aunt Leanne crying. No fuzzy dream logic where everything suddenly changes. It's like my memory hits a wall. Blackness, and then life continues. Not in a way I can clearly place, just It ends, and somehow I'm older, and the days have kept stacking up like they always do. What's strange is, as a kid, I didn't talk about it. I didn't even sit there thinking about it, replaying it, obsessing. It wasn't like a nightmare I kept revisiting. Instead, years later, around my early teens, the memory was just there, fully formed, detailed, like it had been stored in some hidden drawer, and one day the drawer slid open on its own. And it didn't feel like remembering a dream. It felt like remembering something that genuinely happened, only without the normal beginning and after. And because it feels so crisp, the layout of the hallway, the darkness in that front room, the angle of the corner, the eyes, my brain keeps trying to make it fit into a category. But it won't. It wasn't sleep paralysis. I know that feeling, the trapped body feeling, the waking up after feeling. This didn't have a wake-up. It wasn't imagination either, not the way people mean when they say, kids imagine things. The details are too steady, too clear, too physical. I can still see those eyes like they're printed behind my eyelids. And even now, as an adult, if I see that particular shade, yellow or orange eyes in the dark, it hits something primal in me, like my nervous system remembers before I do. So I guess I'm left with this quiet, uneasy question I've carried for years. Has anyone else ever experienced anything like that? A figure in the dark with bright eyes, a hat, a cloak, something that felt like an encounter, not a dream, and it didn't end with waking up. Because I've tried to shrug it off. I've tried to laugh it away. I've tried to label it. But if I'm being honest with you, it still scares me. So, in our village there's this old church. It sits a little off the main road, half hidden by trees, like it's trying not to be noticed. My grandmother, her name is Alina, and she's the kind of person who remembers everything, told me she saw it when she was a girl. Not like it is now. Back then, she said, it was beautiful, solid, bright inside, like it still had a heartbeat. She thinks it was built sometime in the 1910s, maybe a bit earlier. Nobody's completely sure because records got messy. And after the war, it was shut down, locked up, abandoned, and slowly, it just started falling apart. Roof sagging, plaster peeling, weeds climbing right up the steps like they owned the place. But the strange things, Elena always makes a point of this, didn't really start right away. She told me about a man named Merrick, who worked at a small carpentry shop not far from the church. One ordinary day, he had an accident. A saw caught his hand and he lost part of a finger. It was quick, brutal, the kind of thing people talk about for years afterward. And Alina said after that, Merrick changed. Not in a dramatic way at first, just off, quieter, tense, like he was constantly listening for something. Then one evening, he started telling people he'd seen something inside the church, a shadow. He said it looked like a person standing near the front, facing the wall, just standing there like it had been put in place and forgotten. And the worst part, he swore, was that the shadow moved. Not walking, nothing that clear. More like it turned its head, slowly, like it realized someone was watching. And then he started talking about sounds. Footsteps up on the choir loft, even though the stairs were half rotted and nobody went up there. He said he heard whispering too, voices that didn't sound like locals. He described them as harsh and clipped, like they were speaking an old language he couldn't understand, but the tone made his stomach drop. People didn't know what to do with that. Eventually, they sent him away for treatment, because what else do you do when someone starts talking like that? Time passed. Merrick disappeared from village life. The the church stayed locked and crumbling year after year. Then, a few years ago, 2021 I think it was, the village council announced they were going to restore it. New roof, clean stonework, the whole thing. Everyone acted hopeful, like fixing the church would fix something in us too. And that's when Merrick came back. Elena told me it was eerie, like the timing was too perfect. He showed up around the site almost immediately, older now, thinner, eyes sunk in like he hadn't slept properly in a decade. And he kept warning anyone who would look at him. Don't go in there. It's still there. I saw it. Of course, people laughed it off. Or they did that polite nod where you pretend to listen because you don't want a scene. Nobody wants to believe an old story when there's a budget, a schedule, and workers standing around waiting. At first, things really were quiet. The workers cleared rubble and hauled out rotten pews. Dust everywhere. The kind of work that makes you cough up history. And then Merrick insisted on going inside. He told them he needed to show them where it stood, where it always stands, like it had a spot. Elena said he walked in like he was marching to a punishment he couldn't avoid. A minute later, he started screaming. He never made it to the hospital. Elena said he died on the way, and when she told me that, she didn't do it for drama. She said it flatly, with that tired certainty of someone who's seen enough to stop being surprised. After that, the workers started talking too, quietly at first, because nobody wants to be the second, crazy one. They said they saw movement on the choir loft. Not a person exactly, more like a figure that was there until you focused your eyes, and then it wasn't. They said they heard footsteps behind them while they worked, even when they were alone. And a few of them swore the church had a coldness that didn't make sense. Not winter cold. Something sharper, like stepping too close to metal in deep frost. Like the air itself didn't want to touch you. Eventually, they asked a priest to come by. Not to exorcise anything, just to calm nerves, to bless the space, to make it feel normal again. And here's the part that Elena always lowers her voice for. The priest, his name was Father Tomas, went inside alone. He didn't stay long. Elena said it couldn't have been more than a few minutes. When he came out, his face was drained, pale like chalk. He didn't look angry, and he didn't look like he was trying to scare anyone. He looked shaken. And all he said, barely above a whisper, was, "This cold, it isn't natural." Not long after that, the restoration stopped. Officially, the explanation was something boring. Structural concerns, funding delays, technical reasons. The kind of phrase you can hide anything inside. But Elena just shook her head when she told me. She said, "That wasn't technical. They just didn't want to be disturbed." Now the church stands there the same way it has for years, empty, silent, pretending to be just an abandoned building. Except people still talk. They say sometimes you can hear footsteps from inside when you walk past too late in the evening. And sometimes, this is the detail that always gets me. People say the windows fog up from the inside, like someone is breathing against the glass, even though there's no heat, no lights, no workers, no reason for any breath to be there at all. And I don't know what I believe, but when Elena tells it, she doesn't smile. She doesn't exaggerate. She just looks toward the church like it's listening, like it's always been listening. So, I don't talk about this a lot, but I want to tell you because it still sits with me in that tender, complicated place. My grandmother, her name was Marisol, passed away a few years back, in 2018, after a long fight with cancer. And I know people say she meant everything, but I mean it in the most literal way. She wasn't just my grandma. She was my steadiness, my safe place. Honestly, she was the closest thing I had to a second mom. After she died, something kind of beautiful started happening. Every now and then, she'd show up in my dreams. Not in a spooky way, more like she'd just arrive, like she'd stepped into the room mid-conversation. Sometimes she'd interrupt whatever random dream I was having, and suddenly it would be her and me, sitting together like we used to. We'd talk about my life, the little things, the hard things. She'd look at me like she could still read me better than anyone, and I'd wake up feeling held. A couple years later, I started exploring my spirituality more, kind of an eclectic, intuitive path. Nothing super strict, just me learning what felt meaningful and grounding. And then one autumn, late October, when the air gets sharper and everything feels a little thinner somehow, I dreamed about her again. I woke up with that ache in my chest, the kind that's half comfort and half missing. And I got this idea. One of those ideas that seems gentle in your head, like, why not? What's the harm? I thought, maybe I could invite her to visit on the night before Halloween. Not force anything, just open a door and let her decide. I looked up something simple. It was framed like a safe invitation, like, only the person you're calling, only if they want to come. And I remember thinking, okay, that feels respectful, that feels careful. So I set everything up. I gathered little pieces of her, photos, a bracelet she wore all the time, a card she'd written me, a tiny trinket box she used to keep on her dresser. I lit a couple candles. I sat there at my altar and just talked, quietly, like she was across from me. I told her what I'd been doing, what I was scared of, what I wished I could ask her. I even laughed a little, because I could almost hear what she'd say back. And at the end, I remember whispering something like, if you want to come near, you can. If not, that's okay too. I love you either way. Then I blew out the candles and went to bed thinking, well, that was sweet. That was harmless. The next day, I'm home alone. Middle of the day, maybe around 1, just eating lunch on the couch. My laptop is open nearby, work stuff paused. The house is quiet. No TV on, no music, nothing. And then I look up and I see it. A shadow, just fast, like something sprinted across the wall of my living room. Not a slow shift of light, not the passing of a car. It moved like a body moves when it's running. My whole stomach dropped. I turned around so hard I almost spilled my food. And there was nothing. No one. No movement. Just my hallway staring back at me like it always had. And from that moment, the house started feeling off. It wasn't constant, and that somehow made it worse. Little things. A weird sound where there shouldn't be one. A soft thump upstairs when I knew I was the only person home. Lights seeming a little too flickery, like they couldn't decide if they wanted to stay put. And at night, my dreams got strange. Heavy. Like I was walking through places that looked familiar but weren't. And then came the dream that finally tipped me over the edge. I'm trying not to panic, because dream logic makes you do that, right? You try to be brave because you think you have to be. Then suddenly, Marisol is there. Not ghostly, not faded, just her. And the moment I see her, I feel relief so sharp it almost hurts. But her face is different than usual. She looks worried, focused, like she's scanning the room for something I can't see. She doesn't say much. She just takes my hand, firm, like, listen to me, and leads me toward the downstairs area. And I remember this very clearly. She squeezed my hand like she was trying to warn me without scaring me. Then I woke up, and I sat up in bed and I thought, nope, that's it, that's enough. Because what scared me wasn't just the spiders or the weirdness. It was the feeling that she wasn't visiting me the way she used to. It felt like she was showing up because something was wrong. And the thought hit me, cold and awful. What if I invited her here and didn't give her a way to leave? Or worse, What if I opened something I didn't mean to open? So I did what I should have done from the start. I shut it down. I cleansed the house. Really, thoroughly. I opened windows. I went room to room. I used smoke, herbs, things that feel protective to me, sage and lavender, prayers, boundaries spoken out loud. I didn't do it angrily, more like with shaky hands and a steady voice, like telling a child, "Okay, party's over, everyone out, this is my home." And after that, the weird stuff stopped. No more sprinting shadows, no more little uncanny noises that made my skin prickle. The air felt normal again, like my house belonged to me. But the part I didn't expect, the part that still makes me swallow hard when I think about it, is that Marisol stopped visiting my dreams too. It was like, when I cleaned everything out, I swept away the only doorway she'd been using to reach me. And I miss her. I miss her so much. Not in a dramatic way, in a quiet way that shows up when I'm folding laundry or making coffee, or standing in the grocery store and thinking, she would have told me what to do here. I tried again this past year, more carefully, more respectfully, with clearer boundaries. And I cleansed afterward too, just to be safe. But she didn't come. And I don't know what that means. Maybe she's at peace and doesn't need to check in anymore. Maybe I scared myself so badly that my dreaming mind shut the door. Or maybe, this is the thought that I hold most gently, maybe she did come, once, long enough to take my hand and guide me away from something. And that was her way of protecting me one last time. Either way, I still talk to her sometimes, not in rituals, just in the soft places, in my head, out loud when the house is quiet. And I like to think she hears me. I really do. So, I guess I should start with the part that still feels unreal to say out loud. I'm pretty sure the house we live in is haunted. And the weirdest welcome to this place moment didn't even happen inside the house at first. It happened online. A few months back, I'm scrolling through my city's subreddit, half asleep, killing time, and I see a post that stops me cold. Someone had uploaded a street view screenshot of my house, like the exact one I'm living in right now. That alone would have been enough to make my stomach drop, but the reason they posted it made it so much worse. They were basically asking if anyone knew the history of the house, if there'd been deaths here, if anything bad had happened, because they used to live here years ago and said they experienced some really bizarre stuff. I just stared at my phone like, no, absolutely not. My partner, Renee, reached out to the poster. Her name was Mara, I think, and they messaged back and forth a bit. Nothing dramatic, just comparing notes. And it was one of those conversations where every sentence makes the hair on your arms lift because you keep realizing, oh, you too? In the same spots? The same kind of weird? When Renee and I first moved in, maybe 4 years ago now, we'd get little things here and there. The kind of stuff you try to laugh off because the alternative is admitting your house might be active. The first truly strange thing that happened to me was our very first night sleeping in the upstairs bedroom. I go through insomnia in waves. I'll wake up and be fully aware, like my brain powers on before my body does. Then I'll just lay there, trying to slide back into sleep. That night I woke up and heard what I can only describe as small footsteps, like a child or a small person. It sounded like something landed in the hallway, right outside our door, then ran, quick and light, down toward the living room. And the part that made it worse is the attic access is right there in the hallway, just outside the bedroom. So my half-awake brain immediately goes, something came from up there. I got out of bed, heart pounding, and checked the whole place. Living room, kitchen, hallway, everything. Nothing. Not a single thing out of place. Then there's the moment that still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. Another night, same deal. I wake up and I'm just laying there, eyes open, not even lifting my head. The closet door is open, and my gaze drifts toward the top shelf. And I see this tiny green light. Not like a glow or a reflection, an actual pinpoint green LED-looking light. Like something you'd see on a little camera or some old gadget. Just sitting there, steady. The top shelf is basically empty except for an old blanket we keep folded up on the far side, nowhere near where that light was. And as I'm staring at it, I get this deep, immediate discomfort. Not fear exactly, more like my whole body is saying, that doesn't belong here. Don't ignore it. I watched it for what felt like forever, probably 2 minutes, maybe 3, until irritation kicked in and I sat up and turned on the lamp. Gone. Not hard to see, not maybe it was a reflection. Gone. There wasn't even anything on the shelf where the light had been. No device, no toy, no weird charger. Nothing. And when I turned the light off again, it didn't come back. I even tried laying my head back in the exact same position, like I could recreate the angle, prove it was some trick of perspective. Nothing. Like it never happened. But then, about 2 months ago, something shifted. And I don't know what changed. I don't know if we brought something in, or if something woke up, or if it's just been building the whole time. I just know it went from occasional odd moments to feeling like the house is putting on a show every single day. It's just me, Renee, and our 3 dogs, and now all of us are reacting to it. The dogs are the part that really messes with me, because they didn't care before. For years they were totally normal in here, and now, out of nowhere, they'll stop in the middle of playing and all stare down the hallway like someone's standing there. Sometimes they bark at the kitchen doorway like there's a stranger. Sometimes they get anxious and clingy for no reason I can identify. And it's not just them being weird. It's everything. Shadows moving from room to room, like something passing through the edge of your vision. Except when you look up, there's nothing that could have caused it. Sounds with no source. Not the usual house creaks. I mean clear, specific noises that don't make sense. Like taps where there's no pipe, or a thump where nothing could fall. Cabinet doors that are closed, then suddenly not closed. A closet door that's cracked open when you know you shut it. And I'm not talking about, maybe I forgot. I'm talking about, I remember the click of it closing. Stuff goes missing, then shows up somewhere dumb and obvious later. And yes, I know how that sounds. I know what people assume. But I'm telling you, it's happening often enough now that it's hard to keep writing it off. And the timing is almost comical, like the house has a sense of humor. The other night I got up to grab a snack, just a chocolate bar and a glass of milk, and as I'm standing there, I hear knocking on the wall behind me. Not in the distance, right there. I just froze and stared at the counter like, are you kidding me right now? That's the thing. I'm not even scared the way you'd expect. It's not like I'm hiding under blankets. It's more paranoia and frustration. Like living with someone you can't see who keeps messing with your stuff just enough to make you feel crazy. If this was one weird event every 6 months, fine. I could shrug it off. But this has turned into something happening every few hours. And the strangest part is I don't get a malicious vibe from it. I don't feel threatened exactly. It doesn't feel evil. It just feels present. Like something is sharing the space and making sure we know it. I don't even know what I want at this point. Answers, maybe. Perspective. Anything that makes this feel less like I'm living in some low-budget haunted house movie. Because honestly, I'm tired of being the one who has to pretend this is normal. Okay, so before I get into this, I just want to say up front, I'm not someone who's super into paranormal stuff. I'm not out here hunting ghosts or anything. But this is one of those childhood memories that still sits in the back of my mind because I genuinely don't have a clean explanation for it. When I was about 9, my family rented this older house for a year. It had this weird setup. The garage had clearly been a carport at some point, then someone enclosed it later, and because of that renovation, there was this tiny storage room down in the basement that was basically cut off from everything else. Here's the creepy part. You couldn't reach it from inside like a normal room. The only way in was through this ground-level window that opened into the garage. Inside, it was packed with old furniture, dusty chairs, a broken dresser, random boxes, and there was this partial wall in the back that hid the water heater area. You could access the water heater from a separate basement door, but the other side of the wall, where all the junk was only accessible through that window. So naturally, as a kid, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Adults weren't climbing through a window to supervise us, so it became this secret clubhouse. I used to hang out down there with my little sister Maya, who was about 7, and my best friend Ethan, who was my age. We had this silly game. We called it Clinic, I think. One person was the doctor, and the rest of us had to pretend to be asleep. The doctor would leave, shut off the light, and then the people inside would start whispering, shuffling, laughing, just being absolute gremlins in the dark. The goal was for the doctor to come back, snap the light on fast, and catch someone moving. So one day, Maya gets picked to be the doctor. She climbs out through the window into the garage, and Ethan and I immediately start stomping around and giggling and bouncing on this old mattress like we're trying to summon the ceiling to collapse. A minute later, we hear movement outside. Maya comes back to the window and pokes her head in, except she doesn't turn the light on. And I remember freezing, because the room was dark, but enough light was coming in through the garage that I could see her face. And something looked wrong. Her left eye, well, the whole area around it, looked awful, like she'd taken a hard fall. There was this dark red swelling around it, and the skin looked sort of puckered and, I don't know how else to say it, almost sunken, like the eye area didn't sit right. It wasn't just a bruise, it looked injured, the kind of injured that makes your stomach drop. I'm staring, trying to figure out if it's the lighting, or if she's playing a prank, or if something actually happened, and she just keeps looking in at us without saying a word. And then Ethan, right beside me, goes, really quietly, Maya? What happened to your eye? The second he says it, she lifts her hand, covers that eye, like she's ashamed or hiding it, and then she bolts, just runs away from the window. Ethan and I look at each other, and it's one of those moments where you don't even have to talk. We both had the exact same expression, like, we saw that. You saw that too, right? I immediately assume she hurt herself in the garage. So Ethan and I scramble out, run upstairs, and I find Maya in the kitchen with our mom like nothing's wrong. She's just standing there, totally normal. I grab her shoulder, spin her toward me, and I'm like, what happened? What did you do to your face? Are you hurt? So I tell her, right there in front of our mom, you came back to the window and your eye looked like it was messed up, like it was bleeding or bruised. What happened? And Maya gets annoyed, like genuinely irritated, and she goes, I didn't go downstairs. And I'm like, yes you did. You were just there. And she says it again. No, I wasn't. I never went back down. That's the part that still gets me. Because sure, kids misinterpret shadows, right? The garage light, the angle, whatever. If it was just that, maybe I could eventually shrug it off. But Ethan and I both saw the same thing. We both reacted the same way. And we both watched Maya cover her eye and run away. After that, Ethan and I didn't even want to go back down there. For a while, the whole basement felt wrong, like it was holding its breath. I remember later trying to patch the whole thing together with some made-up explanation, like maybe it was a ghost, maybe it was some weird reflection, maybe it was, I don't know, some other version of her. Kid logic trying to put a lid on something that didn't fit. Over the years, I asked Maya about it a few times. Her answers shifted. Sometimes she'd insist she absolutely didn't go downstairs. Once, she said maybe she did go down, but thought I was trying to scare her. When I asked why she covered her eye and ran, she didn't have an answer. The last time I brought it up, she just shrugged and said she didn't really remember. But Ethan remembers. We've talked about it as adults, and we always land on the same details. The window, the dark, the eye, her hand covering it, the way she ran off. And that's why it still messes with me. Because I can almost accept that two kids got spooked by weird lighting. What I can't neatly accept is the idea that the person we saw at that window might not have been my sister at all. So this goes back a ways, like early 2000s. I was about 12, and my class took this weekend trip to an outdoor education place in northern Minnesota. Not Wolf Ridge. This one was called Pine Hollow Environmental Center. Same vibe though. Woods everywhere, quiet roads, the kind of dark at night that feels extra dark. Anyway, first night there, you know how it is. Everyone's supposed to be asleep, but nobody's actually asleep. We're whispering, giggling, shuffling around in sleeping bags, just completely wound up. And then we hear it. Bang. Pause. Bang, bang. Right on the wall beside us. At first we're like, okay, someone's messing around. But it keeps happening, steady, like someone's doing it on purpose. My friend Mason finally blurts out, "All right, who keeps banging on the wall?" We all swear it isn't us. Nobody's leaning on the wall, nobody's kicking it, nobody's tossing stuff. So we decide it must be the room next to ours, trying to mess with us. So we storm out, quiet storm because we don't want to get caught, and we're marching down the little hallway to confront them. And they're walking out at the exact same time. Like we both had the same idea. And it turns into this confused whisper argument. Why are you banging on our wall? We're not. Why are you banging on ours? No, it's literally coming from your side. It's coming from your side. And we just stand there, staring at each other, because neither group is lying. We can tell. Everyone looks genuinely freaked out. So then someone goes, "What if it's someone upstairs?" And that felt like the only explanation that didn't make us all lose our minds, because yeah, there was another floor. So we go back into our rooms, and we all get weirdly quiet on purpose, like we're trying to show we got the message. And this is the part I'll never forget. The moment we quiet down, the banging stops. Not slowly, not after a while, just stops. And we're like, okay, cool. Someone above us wanted us to shut up. We convince ourselves that's all it was, because what else are you supposed to do with something like that when you're 12? Nothing else happened that weekend. I don't remember any spooky stories about that place, nothing like that. It was just that one night, that one thing, and we filed it away as weird, but whatever. But then, fast forward a couple years. I'm at home, in my older sister Tessa's room. We're just hanging out, talking. Our house was a single-story place, and her bedroom shared a wall with the living room where my dad usually sat watching TV. And suddenly Tessa tilts her head and goes, "Do you hear that?" And before I can even answer, bang, pause, bang, bang. Same sound, same rhythm, same right on the other side of the wall feeling. I immediately try to explain it away because that's what you do, right? It's probably the TV. And she's like, no, listen. So I listen, and it's not the TV. It's not bass. It's not vibration. It's someone knocking, like a fist against drywall. Then I try another excuse, because I'm determined to make it normal. Maybe your bed is hitting the wall. And she just stares at me like I'm an idiot and goes, the bed isn't moving. Look. And then my dad, who was in the living room on the other side, gets up and walks down the hall and pops into her doorway looking annoyed and says, okay, who's banging on the wall? And I remember this perfect little moment where all three of us are standing there, realizing the same thing at the same time. Because we thought it was him, and he thought it was us. And Tessa goes, it's not us. We were just asking what it was. And my dad kind of frowns, like he's trying to solve a puzzle he doesn't want to exist. And then, this is the part that gives me chills even now. Right after we say that out loud, it stops. Like whatever it was had been waiting for the argument. Waiting for the who's doing it moment. And once it got the attention or the confusion or whatever it wanted, it was done. That's when it clicked for me later, much later, that these weren't just two random annoying noises. The sound was too similar. The timing was too similar. And the way it ended both times, right after people confronted each other, was too specific to ignore. I'm not saying I know what it was. I genuinely don't. But it didn't feel like an animal. It wasn't scratching or scurrying or chewing. It wasn't inside the wall the way mice sound when they're active. This was blunt, deliberate, like a knock that had intention behind it. And then there's one more piece that always floats in the back of my mind. Later on, like early 2010s, I stayed a few times at this old lodge near Tofta, up the North Shore. Different place, different years, but same kind of remote energy. Back then, we barely had cell service until we got closer to Grand Marais. And almost every time we stayed there, something felt off. Not dramatic, not like objects flying around, more like the air itself was heavy. Weird dreams, the kind where you wake up feeling like you were somewhere else. One trip, we all took naps after checking in, and when we woke up, my dad, who never talks about stuff like that, just casually goes, I had the strangest dreams. He didn't even elaborate, just said it like it unsettled him and he didn't want to give it more oxygen. And years later, that lodge ended up catching fire, badly. I heard it had happened once before too, way back. And I know fires happen for normal reasons. I'm not claiming it means anything. But it sure didn't make the whole area feel less strange in my memory. So yeah, I don't have a neat answer. I don't get to tie it up in a bow. I just know what I heard. And I know how it felt, both times. The way the walls kept knocking until we turned on each other, until we stood there confused, asking who was doing it. And I still wonder sometimes, was it the same thing? Or is there just something about certain places and certain moments where it's like the world leans in close enough to tap on the wall and remind you it's bigger than you thought? Hey, so I don't usually tell these kinds of stories like they're definitely paranormal. I'm normally the person who tries to talk myself down, you know? Like, maybe it was my brain filling in gaps. Or maybe I caught something weird in my peripheral vision. I've had little moments, shadows, strange sounds, that sort of thing. But most of them I can eventually shrug off. This one? I still can't. Okay, so I was about 16, maybe closer to 17, and it was one of those quiet, nothing special afternoons where you're just rotting in your room, relaxing, scrolling, whatever. And then I suddenly remembered I needed to ask my sister something. I honestly can't even remember what it was now. Probably something stupid like if she used my charger or if she'd seen my hoodie. So I get up and open my bedroom door. Our house had this short hallway shaped kind of like a T. My room was on one end, my sister's room was on the other end, and the doors faced each other across that little stretch. It's close enough that when you open your door, you can immediately see the other doorway. The second my door swings open, I see my sister, Maya, walking into her room. I'm not guessing. I'm not catching something out of the corner of my eye. I'm looking straight at her back as she steps into her bedroom. She's wearing one of her usual comfy outfits, like an oversized tee and shorts, and she's holding a bowl, like she'd just grabbed food and was bringing it to her room like she always did. Totally normal, totally her. I'm like, perfect timing. So I say, "Yo, Maya," because I wanted to catch her before she shut herself in. But she doesn't react. She just keeps going and closes the door behind her. And I remember thinking, okay, rude. Or maybe she has earbuds in. She does that sometimes. Music's so loud she's in her own world. So I take a few steps, go right up to her door, and knock. Nothing. I knock again, louder. "Maya?" Still nothing. And now I'm doing that sibling thing where you're like, "Fine, I'll be annoying until you respond." So I start tapping the door in this stupid rhythm like I'm playing drums, and I'm calling her name in that exaggerated sing-song way, like, "Maya." And that's when I hear her voice. Not from inside the room, from behind me. I swear my whole body did that cold drop feeling, like my stomach just fell out of me. I turn around, Lee, and there she is, my actual sister, Maya, standing at the far end of the hallway. She has this face like she's half confused and half trying not to laugh, like, "What are you doing?" I just stared at her, trying to make my brain accept what my eyes were showing me. Because if Maya is standing behind me, then who the hell did I just watch walk into her room? My throat went tight, and I could feel my skin go hot cold. And then it hit me all at once, and I just exploded, like full panic mode, yelling, "Then who is in your room?" And the thing is, it wasn't some vague shape. It wasn't a glimpse. I watched her walk in, carrying food, and I watched her close the door. That's what messes with me the most. Whatever it was didn't just look like my sister. It acted like her, moved like her, did something physical in the space. The door closed. I heard it. I saw it. Nothing looked off. No weird posture. No unnatural movement. No creepy feeling in the moment. It was just my sister, doing a normal sister thing. Until suddenly, she wasn't. And then she goes into full protective big sister mode. She walks into the dining area, grabs a dining chair, like an actual wooden chair, and hoists it up over her head like she's about to fight for her life. And she starts marching down the hallway toward her bedroom going, "You better get out. You better get out." Which, I'm not gonna lie, would have been hilarious if I wasn't seconds away from passing out. She gets to the door, yanks it open, chair still raised, ready to swing. And of course, the room is empty. Nothing. No one. Just her bed, her stuff, the normal, boring quiet of her room like nothing had happened at all. We both kind of stood there, and after a moment, we did that nervous laugh thing people do when their brain doesn't know where else to put the fear. Like, what the hell was that? But I stayed shaky for a long time after. That adrenaline didn't wear off quickly. And even now, thinking back on it, I get that same sick little chill. Because I can make excuses for a lot of weird things. But I still can't explain how I watched my sister walk into her room, and then she was standing behind me. Okay, so this one's a softer, sweeter kind of spooky. More, aw, than, ah! A few years back, I worked at this cozy little pet shop. Nothing fancy, just the usual hum of filters, the smell of fresh bedding, and that constant background chorus of birds gossiping at full volume. We had this back room that was basically our storage and chaos zone. Cleaning supplies stacked everywhere. Extra hides and ladders and toys, bags of food, all that stuff. And in the back, we kept a few bird cages too. Not for display, really, but for the birds who got stressed out by the main bird section. Some of them just couldn't handle the louder personalities out front. And listen, there was one sun conure named Pico who acted like he was auditioning for a rock concert at all times. I adored him, I really did, but wow, my ears were fighting for their lives. So for the shy or anxious birds, we'd keep them back there where it was quieter. Customers could still see them because the back door stayed open, and if someone wanted a closer look, we'd walk them back and introduce them properly. Anyway, one afternoon, I'm back there cleaning. Just me, a mop, and the sound of the store doing its normal thing. I'm turned away from the biggest cage we had in the back, grabbing supplies off a shelf, when I hear it. That very specific sound. You know that clink-clink noise when a larger bird climbs the bars of their cage? Like their little feet and beak tapping and pulling and shifting their weight. It's unmistakable. And it was coming from that big cage behind me. At first, my brain does the normal automatic thing. Cute, someone's climbing around. And then my brain catches up with my body like a cartoon character skidding to a stop. Wait, I'm getting supplies to clean a cage. That cage is empty. Because that morning, the bird who'd been in there, a sweet gray called Mabel, had finally gone home with her new family. Like, I remember waving goodbye. I remember being genuinely happy for her. I was cleaning that cage because it was done, finished, vacant. So I slowly turn around, already feeling a little silly for getting spooked. And yep, empty cage. No bird, no movement. Just the quiet back room and that huge cage sitting there like it hadn't just made noise at me. I stood there for a second like, okay, cool, love this. Now, pet stores, they're not exactly strangers to sad moments. Even when you do everything right, sometimes an animal passes while in your care. It's awful, and it sticks with you. So later, I asked a couple coworkers who'd been there longer if they remembered any bird ever dying in that particular cage. They weren't sure. Nobody could recall anything specific. But I kept hearing it. Not constantly, just once in a while. Always that same climbing sound from the same cage at the weirdest times, when I knew for a fact nothing was in it. And after the third or fourth time, I stopped being scared and started treating it like, I don't know, like a roommate. I'd pause, look over and go, oh, hey there, little ghost bird. And then I'd just go back to what I was doing, like that was a perfectly normal part of my shift. And yeah, if you're still clinking around back there somewhere, ghost birdie, rest easy, okay? You're doing great. Okay, so I need to tell you something that's been sitting on my chest for days now. My dog, he was 15, almost 16, passed away really suddenly late Friday night. I'd had him since he was a tiny puppy, like the kind that fits in your hands. His name was Milo, and he followed me everywhere. Not sometimes, everywhere. Bathroom trips, making coffee, pacing the kitchen while I cooked. He was just my little shadow for his whole life. I know people always say best friend, but I mean it in the most literal way. He was my person in dog form. I've been staying at my parents' house for a few weeks, just trying to get my feet under me. and Milo and I have spent tons of time here over the years. This house is familiar to him, like he knew every creaky floorboard, every sunny spot, every route from the living room to my bedroom. And that's part of why this feels so intense. Because he didn't just pass away near here. He passed away here, in this house. I'm not going to get into the details because it still makes my hands shake, but it was traumatic, and it was fast, and it didn't make sense. That's the thing that keeps messing with me. The day before, he was fine. Not fine for an old dog, but genuinely himself. He was trotting around, nudging my leg for attention, tail wagging like a metronome. He even did that little happy hop thing he did when he wanted a treat, like half bounce, half swagger. 24 hours later, he was gone. And the house feels different. You know how a home with a pet has this constant background presence? Like a soft noise you don't even notice until it's missing. Tags clicking, paws tapping, a sigh from the corner, the little shuffle of them getting comfortable. And then suddenly it's just gone. The silence has weight now. It's not peaceful silence. It's the kind that presses in on you. So last night, I'm in bed, absolutely exhausted. But you know that kind of exhaustion where your body is wrecked and your mind still won't shut up? I'm staring forward, trying to convince myself to fall asleep. Milo always slept beside my bed. The bed's raised, so when he'd stand up, I'd mostly see just the top of his head and the tip of his tail moving around as he did his little rounds. Like, "Are you awake? Can I get one more pet? Is it morning yet?" That routine was basically stitched into my life. And I swear to you, I saw something. Not like a full-on shape, not like a clear, "there he is" moment, just movement. Right next to the bed, in the exact spot where he used to be. Out of the corner of my eye, something shifted, like the smallest, most familiar kind of motion. The kind you'd normally ignore because you'd just assume it's him. I'd been crying all day, so at first I was like, okay, it's my eyes, it's grief, it's tears and no sleep. I even blinked hard and wiped my face and tried to be logical about it. But it stuck with me. That feeling of, no, I really saw that. And then tonight, this is what got me. My mom casually mentions she's been noticing movement too. She didn't say it in a dramatic way either. More like she was admitting something she'd been trying to dismiss. My room is around the corner and down the hallway, and she said she keeps seeing this constant back and forth flicker in that hallway. Like something passing through, the same route Milo used to take when he'd trot down to check on me. I didn't even tell her what I'd seen yet. She brought it up first. My mom and I both look at each other and we're like, no. And my dad goes, I just felt this huge, cold gust right next to me. Like a rush of cold air out of nowhere. So I tried to make it lighter because I didn't want to cry at the table again, and I kind of half laughed and said, well, maybe Milo's still hanging around. And my mom looked straight at me, serious, not joking, and said, I've been seeing movement in the hallway all day. That's when I finally told her what happened last night by my bed. Here's the thing. My mom and I, we're both believers. We've had experiences before, the kind you can't really explain without sounding like you're trying to convince someone. And I'm not even trying to convince you. I'm just telling you what's been happening. It honestly makes sense to me that if a soul can linger, if love can leave an imprint, it would be him. Especially with how sudden it was. Like he didn't get the slow, gentle goodbye. Like one moment he was here, doing his normal Milo things, and the next moment, whatever the next moment is, happened too fast for him to understand. And selfishly, I want it to be him. Because these past couple days have been the worst I can remember. It's not just sadness, It's physical pain. It's that hollow, shocked feeling like something essential got ripped out of the world. And the idea that he might still be nearby, still doing his little patrols, still checking on me the way he always did, it doesn't scare me. It actually feels like the only comforting thought I've had. He spent his whole life being my shadow. If there's any part of him that can still follow that habit, still love me in the same quiet, loyal way, then I hope I can feel it. Even if it's just a flicker in the hallway. Even if it's just the soft sense that I'm not entirely alone in this yet. So this goes back to 1987, when I was in 4th grade, and we lived in this sleepy neighborhood on the edge of town. More trees than people, the kind of place where afternoons felt extra quiet. I've always been an animal kid. You know the type. If something had fur or feathers, I was already in love. And one weekend, my parents took me to this little open-air market. There were stalls with fruit, toys, cheap plastic jewelry, and then, tucked off to the side, this small pen with baby birds. That's where I saw him. A tiny, barely steady chick, still fluffy, eyes too big for his head, peeping like he was asking the world a question. I don't even remember thinking it through. I just remember this feeling, like, I'm not leaving without him. So I begged, and somehow, I won. I brought him home with absolutely no clue what I was doing. I mean, what does a kid know about raising something that fragile? I didn't have the right food. I didn't have the right lamp. I didn't even have the right anything. But I tried. I warmed him with a towel, mixed whatever mush I could, and sat there for hours like it was my job. And against all odds, he made it. More than made it, actually. Because here's the strange part. He didn't grow normally. He grew fast. Not just, oh wow, he's getting bigger, but like someone had pressed fast forward. Within a couple of months, he was tall and sturdy and, this is going to sound weird, he carried himself like he was older than he should have been. Like he wasn't just a chick anymore, but something steadier, more aware. We named him Milo, and I swear, from the moment that name stuck, we were bonded. I've never had anything like it, before or since. He wouldn't eat unless it was from my hands. If anyone else tried, he'd just stare and refuse like, nope, that's not how we do things. At night, he'd settle right next to my bed, not on it, but beside it, like a little sentry. Sometimes I'd wake up and see him there in the dim light, perfectly still, like he was on duty. My family joked he was more faithful than a dog, and honestly, they weren't wrong. Then fall rolled around, and everything changed. I got sick, really sick. It hit like a wall. One day I was fine, and the next I had this fever that wouldn't quit. My parents took me to doctor after doctor. They ran tests, drew blood, asked a million questions, and every time it was the same thing. Shrugging confusion. Nothing fit. And I just kept getting worse. I dropped weight fast. My skin got raw and started peeling in places. Food wouldn't stay down. Everything tasted wrong, felt wrong. Even water made me nauseous. I remember my mom trying to keep her voice calm while she talked to me, but her eyes looked terrified. It was the sickest I've ever been in my life. And there was this quiet fear hanging in the house, like no one wanted to say the worst thought out loud. And that's when Milo changed too. At first, it was like he could sense something. He got restless, pacing, darting, making these sharp little sounds. Not angry, just frantic, like he was trying to solve a problem and couldn't. If my parents offered him food, he'd refuse. He'd look right past them, like he was waiting for me. Then, as the days dragged on and I got weaker, he got quieter. One morning, I noticed he wasn't pacing anymore. He'd moved to the corner of my room and just stayed there. Eyes half-lidded, feathers puffed up, barely reacting to anything. It felt like he was sinking alongside me. Then, suddenly, something shifted. One morning, my mom brought me broth, and I managed a few spoonfuls, and they stayed down. The next day, I kept down a little pureed food. My fever broke in slow steps, like it was loosening its grip. My skin started to calm. My strength didn't come rushing back, but it started to return, piece by piece. Everyone was relieved. Everyone. Except Milo. Because while I was getting better, he was getting worse. Fast. Like whatever had been holding him up was draining away. He didn't lift his head when I spoke. He didn't flinch when someone walked in. It was like he was already halfway gone. And when I finally had enough strength to sit up on my own, I asked to see him. My parents tried to distract me, told me to rest, but I wouldn't let it go. So they carried him over and set him gently beside my bed. He looked so small in that moment. I reached out and touched his feathers, soft as dust, and I whispered his name. Just Milo. Hey, I'm here. And for the first time in days, his eyes opened. Not wide, not bright, but open. He gave this tiny shudder, like a sigh, but in his whole body. And for a second, I felt like he was looking straight through me, like he was checking something off a list. Then his head dropped. And that was it. Milo was gone. The house went silent in this way I still remember. My mom cried like she'd been holding it in for weeks. My dad stood very still, like he didn't know where to put his hands. And me, I didn't even have the energy to sob properly. I just sat there, stunned, feeling this grief I couldn't understand. Because how do you explain losing something that felt like it was part of you? Here's what makes it even harder to talk about. From that day on, my recovery kept going. Steady, clear, like the worst had passed and wasn't coming back. Doctors never gave us an explanation that made sense. It just resolved. And Milo never got to see the kid he guarded actually come back. We buried him under a tree in the yard, the one that cast shade over the grass in the late afternoon. I remember we ringed the spot with pale little stones we found nearby. Nothing fancy, just a small circle, like a promise. My parents believed, truly believed, he gave his life for me. And look, I know how that sounds. I know the logical explanations people might reach for. But even now, all these years later, I can't shake how perfectly the timing lined up. How he changed when I changed. How he faded as I faded. How he let go right when I started to come back. I can't prove anything. I can't explain it. I just know that some bonds don't make sense on paper. And sometimes, the thing that keeps watch over you doesn't have to be human. So back when this happened, my family was living in this narrow townhouse, 5 of us total. My mom and dad, me, and my 2 older brothers. We also had our dog, Milo, who followed everyone around like it was his full-time job. The layout matters, so picture this. The basement was basically my oldest brother's space. The main floor had the kitchen and living room. And then there was this staircase situation where, if you were standing on the first floor facing the stairs, the upstairs staircase was on your left, and the basement stairs were on your right. Not quite a wraparound, but close enough that it always felt like you were standing on a little landing between 2 directions. That day, for some reason I can't fully remember, errands, a lunch, something normal. My parents and one of my brothers were out. I was home, upstairs, hanging out in my room at the very back of the 2nd floor. I eventually stepped out into the hallway, and immediately to my right was my brother Caleb's room. His door was open, and when I glanced in, I froze a little, because I saw my oldest brother, Jonah, lying sideways across Caleb's bed in this super specific way Jonah always did. Like he was half lounging, half trying to be comfortable, legs kind of angled toward the window. There was this big double window right behind him, letting in all this daylight. And Milo was at Jonah's feet, totally relaxed. No stiff posture, no alert ears, no weird growl. Just calm. Jonah was reading a book. I can't remember any title. No visible words. Just a plain, dark blue cover, almost navy. And he was staring down at it like he was completely absorbed. So I said, why are you in Caleb's room? Nothing. Not even a glance. I asked again. Still nothing. And look, my brothers ignoring me was not exactly breaking news. If they thought I was being annoying, they'd treat me like background noise. So I tried a third time, said his name, a little louder. No response. Just this quiet, steady breathing, and him turning a page. Finally, I got annoyed and went, okay, whatever, and turned away. I headed down the hallway and started going downstairs, and that's when I heard piano. It was coming from below, like from the basement direction. Jonah had this electric keyboard down there with a bunch of preset buttons where you could hit something and it would play a little demo song automatically. So for a second I thought, oh, he's messing with me. He's trying to freak me out. But it didn't sound like a preset. It sounded like Jonah, like the way he actually played when he was writing something. Slightly imperfect, emotional, kind of flowing like he was figuring it out as he went. I kept going down the stairs, and when I reached the bottom, I ended up standing right on that little in-between spot. Upstairs staircase behind me, basement staircase nearby. I just stood there, suddenly not wanting to move, because my brain was trying to hold two things at once. Jonah was upstairs in Caleb's room, but Jonah was also apparently downstairs playing piano. So I yelled, "Jonah!" And immediately, his voice answered from the basement. "What?" My stomach dropped. I called back, "Where are you?" "In the basement," he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. And I remember gripping the railing, staring toward the upstairs, because I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't want to be dramatic. I didn't want this to be real. But I said, "No, you're not. You're upstairs. I just saw you in Caleb's room." And then, like instantly, Jonah came rushing up the basement stairs, two at a time, like he could hear the panic in my voice. His face looked genuinely confused, like he thought I was about to tell him there was a fire or someone in the house. We went upstairs together, and the bed was empty. The window was the same. The light was the same. The room looked untouched. No dents in the bedding, no shifting pillows, nothing like someone had just been lying there. And Milo was still on the bed, in basically the same spot. Calm, unbothered, like, "What? I'm just hanging out." I remember looking at Jonah and insisting, "I swear to you, I saw you right here. Same position you always lie in, same everything." And the weirdest part was, Jonah believed me. He didn't laugh. He didn't tease me. He just kind of stared at the bed and the window like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Later, when my parents came home, I told them what happened. My dad got irritated almost immediately. He said I was messing around. And when I insisted I wasn't, he shifted to that tone adults get when they decide you're lying on purpose. But my mom was different. She listened, really listened. And then she said something I still remember, because it was said so gently, like she wasn't trying to scare me, just explain the world the way she saw it. She said, "Sometimes strange things happen in houses, and if Milo was calm, maybe it wasn't something bad." She even floated this idea that maybe, since there'd been a break-in nearby recently, just a few doors down, whatever I saw could have been protective, like a presence in the window, visible from the street, keeping watch while we were home alone. I don't know. There's no clean ending to it. No proof, no explanation, nothing I can point to except how real it felt in my body in that moment, how certain I was of what I saw. And even now, as an adult, I still think about it sometimes. Not constantly, but every once in a while it pops back into my head. Jonah in that exact pose, the dark blue book, Milo at his feet like everything was perfectly normal. And I get that same little chill, like my brain is still trying to make it fit into one story.